Chapter 190. Whoa. A blond man woke up on a bed. With impressive muscles, he wiped the sweat off his neck. Phew. Thought I was dying. Wait, where am I? His relief at finding his throat intact was short-lived as he realized he was in an unfamiliar space. It was a room, adorned with posters of famous heavy metal bands on the walls and character posters received as gifts from Japanese animation Blu-rays. On the desk below the posters sat an expensive computer and black headgear with futuristic design. Seeing the black futuristic headgear, he realized where he was. I'm back home. The blond Caucasian man, or rather Jason Turningham, shouted with joy. This was his hometown. He had finally returned to reality. How long has it been? 10 years. No, 15. Jason looked down at his hands. Instead of the cult's characteristic fair hands, he saw dark-toned palms and hairy wrists. It felt awkward, considering he had spent more than half of his life in a game. Perhaps it was natural. He cleared away the nostalgic-smelling blanket and got out of bed. His height, once close to 2 meters, was now just around 180 centimeters. Jason. How long are you going to sleep? It sounded like he'd turned into a dwarf overnight, hearing voices from outside. Mom. He had enjoyed a life more blessed than anyone else in the world of space survival, but there was one thing he regretted: his memories of his parents. Jason quickly dressed and went outside. The smell of his mother's baked meatloaf filled the air up to his room on the second floor. He stumbled down the stairs. In the living room connected to the kitchen, he shouted loudly. Mom. His mother, who was laying out food on the table, was startled and scolded him. How old was he to be causing a fuss since morning? She grumbled, telling him to hurry up and eat. That was the image of his mother that Jason remembered. It was supposed to be like that. What he saw was completely different from what he expected. The neat kitchen was tainted red like uncooked meatloaf. There was a strong metallic smell emanating from the liquid staining the walls. Jason stared blankly at the tired kitchen. And there, holding what used to be his mother, was an entity that shouldn't be there. No. With its dark purple exoskeleton and elongated head, the monster had 6 arms, 2 legs, and a tail as long as its body. It was the amorph that appeared in Space Survival. The creature was chewing on Jason's mother in the kitchen. Ow! Jason screamed, tightly closing his eyes. If only all of this were just a dream. And then, as if in a lie, he opened his eyes on the bed. A dream. Metal group posters, Japanese anime character posters, and a computer. It was the scene he had seen upon waking up a while ago. He was in his own room, not in the world of the game. Jason. How long are you going to sleep? Mom. Without a moment to rejoice in his return, Jason quickly got up and headed out of the room. He practically flew down the stairs to the kitchen. Jason, I told you not to run in the house. Hearing his beloved mother's voice, Jason gasped for breath. He could hardly breathe at all. Out of happiness. No. His mother wasn't supposed to be speaking. Especially not with only her throat remaining, unable to speak. Jason, come and have your meal. The amorph holding his mother's head muttered in his mother's voice. Jason. Why are you dawdling? Jason. Jason. In the living room, where his mother's voice echoed, he covered his ears. Tears of blood were now flowing from his eyes. When his vision blurred with tears of blood, he opened his eyes. Again. No. Posters with metal group names printed in rough fonts on black backgrounds and posters depicting Mo characters. Seeing the familiar scenery, he realized. Buck. He cursed, flipping the blanket over. Now he remembered. The day he entered Space Survival, he wasn't at his hometown house. His last memory was wearing VR equipment in his cramped apartment for a broadcast. The situation he was experiencing now was incredibly realistic but definitely not reality. Someone knocked on the door. Jason. How long are you going to sleep? Jason, I always saw. Mom. He glanced at the door, startled by the piercing scream from outside. Moments later, red liquid began seeping in under the door. Ugh. Guilt for losing his mother drove Jason to tear at his hair frantically. Then, the firmly closed door handle slowly turned. Gasp. Once again, Jason opened his eyes on the bed in the same position. Where this was didn't matter. What mattered was the fact that he had become a prisoner in this nightmare-like world. Jason. How long are you going to sleep? His mother's voice from outside. The voice he had always longed for now felt terrifying. Thanks to devouring the green Galagon, the urgent fire was extinguished. Number 26, who suffered the most severe injuries among us, ate more meat than usual. It devoured 2 wings, each almost reaching 10 meters in length, all by itself. The creature, now with a full stomach, swelled up and promptly fell asleep. Thanks to it, we were able to inject psychic power into the dormant PS-111 to awaken it. We handed over some debris of the screamer to the awakened PS-111. While biological tissues might not mean much, the metal parts wouldn't help with energy charging. As a clever weakling, I could maintain my form with a small supply of food, gaining enough energy. The penetrating wound in my neck had almost healed, and the side effects of the hunt had disappeared. So we spent the night in the pit I dug. Quietly rising, I looked at the sleeping number 26 and PS-111. I wanted to examine the new gains obtained from devouring Jason in detail. It seems like it'll be noisy to check here. I planned to summon Jason's interface and ask him. Considering his personality, even as an interface, he would likely be quite noisy. As I walked out of the pit and wandered among the trees, I heard footsteps behind me. The griffin, still recovering from her wounds, was the mother of the sky. You're going to check the gains, right? Zzz, yes. I'll come with you. I was about to say there was no need, but I relented when I looked into her eyes. During the day, she was indifferent, but Jason was one of her enemies. He was the Humuriel to kill her family. An interface inherits some memories from the original. Recent experiences and elements considered important by the original remain even after becoming an interface. Perhaps Jason's interface remembers details about Muriel. I suppose you have a lot to say. Compared to Muriel, Jason met a relatively merciful death. We had no choice but to use unknown means to escape. But she went as far as implanting parasites in his head to repay her family's grudge. It might be cruel to tell her to forget, given her circumstances. I'll need information on other colleagues anyway. It wouldn't hurt if she overhears. Zzz, if that makes you feel better. Thanks. I moved away from the pit with the mother of the sky. The pitch-black forest was quite eerie due to the relentless sound of the snowstorm, but none of us were scared by it. This should be enough. Finding a suitable spot, I half-turned my body and transformed my interface characteristics. One of the interfaces hidden in the fur was sucked into my body. Then, a new face emerged from the sticky liquid. With smooth skin like a newborn baby, it was the face of Jason, the cult priest. Moments later, Jason's eyes snapped open. Ugh, where? Quiet. When I gestured with my finger to quiet him down, Jason closed his mouth. An interface is one of my body parts. I have complete control over all his movements. Answer the questions I asked. Jason, still blinking his eyes absent-mindedly, replied. I allowed him to speak. I'll tell you everything. As so please don't send me back to that hell. Since becoming an interface usually means losing all control over one's body, he tends to listen to me. And for some unknown reason, as time passes, he seems to prefer being used as an interface rather than sleeping. He's surprisingly obedient for that. Jason, who used to be arrogant in life, showed a cooperative attitude beyond imagination. Even the mother of the sky watching beside me seemed bewildered. It's probably irrelevant to me. It's better if he acts high and mighty. I started asking him questions. What perks he possessed, his influence, information about his colleagues, and so on. Though I had only conversed with the interface for about an hour, the amount of information obtained was substantial. It was unprecedented to obtain such high-quality information recently. Let's think about that later. What's important now is the part about the perks. Jason had 3 perks. One was the unique ability he gained when he came to this world, and the other 2 were obtained by killing players. Psychic Technology Synthesis, Cold Blood's Particle Biocontrol ability, and Metallic Gremlin's Warp ability. The second ability was manifested as a golden shape hanging on his back, and the third ability was the one he intended to use for escape. He really won this one. The decisive reason Jason lost was that he possessed such powerful strength unexpectedly. If he hadn't been intoxicated by his own power, we would have lost. I should be careful too. It's ultimately my fault for letting Ham-Ort steal Adha. After killing Jason, I made a reckless decision in haste. I have a lot to lose now. The current situation is different from the game, where I only had to take care of my own life. And in the game, even if you die, you respawn, but not here. It's game over if I, number 26, Adha, the Mother of the Sky, or PS 111 die. It's not that there isn't a resurrection perk, but I can never obtain it now. Even after becoming an adult, it's a perk that can only be obtained by risking your life, so it's faster to assume it doesn't exist. I need to be more careful to protect them. I gathered my thoughts again and reactivated the text box I checked during the day. Predation effect activated. Successfully seized the perk Jason turning him. Space bacteria and hallucinogenic flames fusion possible. Please select a perk. The selection result is affected by the perks used as materials. Note, you are at a critical juncture. Please choose carefully. Time remaining until perk selection, 13:09 and 30 seconds. You are the target of the perk enhancement system. Do you want to use the system? This is related to the second perk Jason had. It's the ability to control particle biology obtained from Coldblood, which dominated the golden form he used. The remaining two perks are locked because there are no perks among the ones I have that can be used as materials. Jason doesn't know which perks are compatible. That part seems to require experimentation with various perks. It's probably related to the nature of the perks. The trophy of the strong enemy perk I obtained from killing the previous Muriel, and the Plunderer's irregular polyhedron used metal absorption as a material. Thanks to that, I gained the ability to eat weapons and specialize their properties. That means there are two perks I can use as materials. One is the infection-related perk Space Bacteria, and the other is the psychic-related perk Hallucinogenic Flames. It's surprising that such different perks were selected for fusion. I have some idea of what it might be. Looking at the nature of the perk, it's not completely unrelated to compatible perks. First, looking at the part about space bacteria, there's a similarity in producing and managing small particles. Jason said the ability to control particle biology involves freely manipulating golden particle organisms through a special organ between the spinal cord and the brain. It also heavily relies on the host's senses because the particle organisms are attached to the special organ. In short, it's like creating new arms and legs as needed. Maybe merging with space bacteria will make it similar to the ability he used. It's not certain, though. Anyway, let's move on. Next is the hallucinogenic flames. Hallucinogenic flames is like a downgraded version of the purple spray gun. It's a perk that emits flames made of psychic power, as the name suggests. It would have been nice if the firepower was a bit stronger. The firepower of the hallucinogenic flames is truly dismal. It's so bad it might be called purple urine in the game. However, considering the future, it's worth obtaining because it can be used as a powerful fusion material later on. Moreover, here, through the transcendental system, it could be used to create powerful perks. The reason why a perk that doesn't seem particularly useful besides its potential is used as a material for the trophy of the strong enemy perk can be speculated upon. This part is definitely related to the original owner. The original owner of the ability to control particle biology was a Coldblood player. Coldblood, due to a misguided contract with the Vortex One, is a race that fell into bondage as a whole. Therefore, Coldblood players often use abilities derived from the Vortex One. In fact, depending on the player's choice, there are events where they borrow the Vortex One's unique ability, Abyssal Power. Anyway, based on this, it can be speculated that using psychic-related technologies as materials may stem from the unique settings of Coldblood. The Vortex is the strongest psychic power creature. According to Jason, the Coldblood player who possessed this perk was a Vortex One. In other words, if fused with psychic-related abilities, it could be implemented in a form similar to the abilities used by the original Vortex One. Let's summarize again. If space bacteria is used as a material to create the trophy of the strong enemy, there's a possibility of obtaining a perk similar to the golden form that Jason used. Conversely, if hallucinogenic flames are used as a material, it could be implemented as a perk similar to what the original Coldblood player used. Well, it's all just speculation anyway. In the world of space survival, there's never a case where players are taught anything directly. They have to figure everything out themselves. Should I postpone it? There are still 13 hours left. If by any chance, a mine perk comes out when the perk is specialized, the impact could be quite significant. After a few minutes of deliberation, I shook my head. No, let's choose now. Spending all 13 hours pondering wouldn't likely lead to an answer. While it's important to move cautiously, it doesn't mean delaying decisions indefinitely. Regardless of what perk comes out, it's far more productive to quickly grasp its characteristics and research how to use it. With that decision made, I selected the perk to be used as the material for the trophy of the strong enemy. Chapter 191. Would you really choose the hallucinogenic flames as your material? Once chosen, there's no turning back. The semi-transparent text box reappeared, almost as if questioning whether this was truly the best choice. There were two reasons why I chose the hallucinogenic flames over the cosmic bacteria. Firstly, it was because of the adversaries I had to face on this planet. Galagons are masters of psychic techniques. Just the white Galagon alone was a monster capable of unleashing psychic breath. To fight them, I needed several weapons utilizing psychic power. But all my innate abilities are either supportive or defensive. While the hallucinogenic flames and the psychic breath usable as the monster's tentacles were both aggressive psychic techniques, they both had fatal flaws. The hallucinogenic flames were effective only against blue Galagon or lower, while the psychic breath, although powerful, had limited uses. Given the lack of offensive psychic abilities, sacrificing the hallucinogenic flames to gain new skills was advantageous. The second reason was my relationship with the Vortex One. If, as I anticipated, my psychic abilities and perks combined to manifest through the power of the Vortex One, it would become an incredibly potent ability. In the game, everything related to them was useful. The Vortex One possessed unique abilities. Therefore, capturing them and reaping the predation effect would invariably grant a unique ability. Of course, there are risks. To put it simply, the blessing bestowed by the Vortex One was high risk, high return. Power received from transcendent beings was never free. Like Punium, where the duration decreased with each use, using abilities weakened or the price to be paid increased. Hence, players who followed the sociopath route would see a significant decrease in power after the mid-game. If it's related to the power of the Vortex One, it must be utilized as a trump card. It was like wielding the whip of the gods. I selected Confirm in response to the semi-transparent text box's question. Then, a new message appeared. You are the target of the ability enhancement system. Will you use the system? The ability enhancement system. This was the first time I'd used it. When I killed Muriel, the system hadn't been unlocked, and the new unique ability hadn't appeared on the system, possibly because the conditions hadn't been met yet. Choosing abilities to create the mark of the adversary and using the ability enhancement system were both firsts for me. This is definitely a crucial moment. I felt this way shortly after starting my space survival journey. Curiosity about the unknown outcome, coupled with fear and anticipation of the butterfly effect this choice might cause, stirred within me. With that strange feeling, I checked what abilities I had available as materials. The majority of my abilities are related to physical enhancements. There were a total of 18 physical-related abilities. Excluding the fusion abilities, which couldn't be used as enhancement materials, that left 13. To maintain the physical enhancement type, I need 10 abilities. Thus, I could invest in up to 8 physical abilities as enhancement materials. Of course, I didn't plan to use all 8, I intended to select only a few from among them. Let's go with abilities related to underwater activities. Currently, abilities related to underwater activities wouldn't aid me in combat. While there was a high chance of water being present on the ice planet, the creatures I aimed to capture weren't heavily tied to water. Therefore, I chose abilities that were not frequently used or easily obtainable. In the physical category, pheromone enhancement, robust vitality, aquatic claws, fins, dexterity. Let's go with these 5. The remaining ones were selected from characteristics of other types that weren't useful. I chose memory tracking for psychic-related abilities, auditory hallucination for infection-related abilities, sticky tendrils and water spirit for nest-related abilities. Having selected a total of 9 abilities, I double-checked to ensure there wouldn't be any issues. That should do. After confirming and selecting the 9 abilities as enhancement materials, the mark of the adversary system finally started operating. The perks of Jason Turningham and the hallucinogenic flames ability are merging. Involvement of the Chaos Emblem, Special Trait Enhancement System. Trait Enhancement in progress. Color of the Abyss trait evolving. Color of the Abyss, when activated, indescribable colors envelop the body. Automatically granted to psychic-type abilities. Target applications, Monster Tentacles, Observer of Terror, Psychic Reflection Gloves. Note: Terror cannot be controlled. Similarly, The unknown colors cannot be controlled. As the new mark of the adversary was completed, semi-transparent text boxes popped up everywhere. Suddenly, my head felt heavy, perhaps due to lack of energy. I steadied myself and checked the description of the new trait. What's this? The finished product was completely different from what I had expected. This isn't an offensive trait. Based on the description alone, this trait seemed more like a supportive one. Of course, I couldn't be sure until I tried it out. More concerning were the notes. Unlike usual, the ominous implications in the note caught my attention. Cannot be controlled. In space survival, there were occasionally equipment or traits that players couldn't control. Some were very powerful, but others were difficult to utilize effectively. Overcoming this inability to control was crucial. From my experience, traits that couldn't be controlled were as challenging to use as the revenant mechanism. I'll have to experiment to see how to use it. Lost in thought about the new trait, I only then realized that something had changed around me. Where's Mother of the Sky? She, who had been with me during the interrogation of Jason, was nowhere to be seen. Focusing on the auxiliary systems, I sensed her presence from a small clearing nearby. I stopped checking the color of the abyss trait and walked toward her location. What are you doing? In the clearing, she stood silently, gazing into the void. Tears filled her luminous pumpkin-colored eyes, even in the darkness. As I approached, she wiped her eyes with her forepaw. Are you done? Seeing her forcibly maintain an appearance of calmness, I couldn't say anything. I messed up. I heard why Jason targeted Mother of the Sky when questioning him. His motives were simple and selfish. He wanted to toy with Mother of the Sky. And if he got bored, he'd turn her into a perk. If that were the case, there were two reasons why he specifically chose Mother of the Sky. He wants a wolf slave, and playing with the same player held a special significance for him. Mother of the Sky lost her loved ones and family because of Jason's petty desires. I shouldn't have brought her along for nothing. Thinking that knowing the reason might ease her mind a bit, I brought her along, but it only made things worse. Quietly, I knelt beside her and leaned against her. It didn't carry any special meaning. It's because she, who hasn't gained the power of Wendigo yet, finds it difficult to endure the cold. Normally, she would send awkward glances, but now, she just remained still, perhaps mentally exhausted. So there we were, huddled together, maintaining silence. I wished I could offer some words of comfort, but unfortunately, I lack the gift of speech. Moreover, I've never experienced the same pain as her, the experience of losing loved ones in an instant. If number 26 and Adha were to die at the hands of Jason, I wouldn't be able to keep my sanity. Just imagining it makes my blood run cold, yet she actually went through that situation. Whatever I say wouldn't bring her any comfort. All I can do is ensure she doesn't feel cold. How much time had passed? After a long silence, she sighed deeply. I met him 10 years ago. It was in the 5th year after I fell into this world. The him she mentioned is singular. The father of the earth. In the game, he's a fixed NPC related to the quest for the Divine Spectre. He has the appearance of a lion with metal scales and horns like a goat. He's not very big, but he has high defense and speed. To put it simply, he gives off a vibe like a downsized ice horror. I've heard before that she married the father of the earth and took on the role of protector of the wolves. She made the decision to live with the family she found in this world. To be honest, I didn't adapt well when I first came to this world. ZZZZZZZZZ, is that so? Yeah. If I hadn't met him, I wouldn't have survived in this world for so long. With her words flowing, she began to talk about her experiences with her loved one. Arguing, making up, even getting a gray centipede. Can you imagine how shocking it was? You know, he had a head just like that person. ZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZz. What I mean is, even a love of 1,000 years can fade away. Memories of fighting and reconciling. The young wolves found it awkward when I tried to put flowers on them. It was the first time I realized that lions could make such expressions. ZZZZZZZZZZ, that's intriguing. Memories of spending pleasant times together. She recounted every memory that came to mind, leaving nothing out. Because of that, her story was chaotic and hard to follow. But I quietly listened to her story, knowing that she was doing this to mourn the deceased. He was really an interesting fellow. But what about when he died? He said we'd be together forever, and then. TSK, that bastard. Continuously rambling, she suddenly couldn't speak anymore. All she did was repeat the words bad guy while sobbing. Seeing her pitiful state, I unknowingly reached out with my small arm towards her chest. My fingertips touched her plush and soft fur. I gently stroked her snowy white head like fur. Mother of the Sky seemed too overwhelmed with emotions to notice that I was petting her. We don't have that kind of relationship, but perhaps it's because we've been through so much together. Now it's awkward to withdraw my hand, so I continued to pet her. So she poured out all the tears she had been holding back for a long time. By the time the tears on her front paws froze, she was able to calm down. Finally calming down, she awkwardly turned her head to the side. Following her reaction, I naturally withdrew my hand. I didn't expect to cry like this at this age. ZZZZZZZZZZZZ, how old are you? Do you really have to ask that in this situation? ZZZZZZZZZZZZ, I have nothing to say. I have one request, would it be okay? ZZZZZZZZZ, what is it? I want to destroy Jason's disguise. I thought it was a joke to hide the awkwardness, but when I looked into her eyes, it was sincere. Looking at her front paws, I saw the vicious claws. Protruding, ready for action. ZZZZZZZZZ, no, you can't. Please, just once. Can't I just hit him really hard, just once? ZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZz. Consider it when you're stamina is fully recovered. In truth, even if she were to destroy Jason's face, he could regenerate at any time. After all, it's part of my body. If that helps ease her burden even a little, it might be worth it. Mother of the Sky was silent for a moment, then looked me straight in the eyes. Thank you. Her short but sincere words. I nodded in response. Her smooth pumpkin-colored eyes still held traces of sadness, but they had improved a lot since earlier. Thank goodness. By the way, you've changed a lot in appearance, haven't you? Perhaps feeling embarrassed to meet my gaze, she changed the subject. Is it because of the new traits? I came to find Mother of the Sky after reading about Color of the Abyss. So I hadn't yet examined the changes in my body. ZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZz. Something has changed a lot. Mother of the Sky chuckled and examined my body. The claws between her fingers, the fins hidden in her tail, and various other traits had disappeared from my body due to the trait enhancement system. However, it was true that there was a subtle change that couldn't be explained just by that. As I began to inspect my body, I quickly noticed what had changed. Monster tentacles. The tentacles of the monster that flowed from the back of the head like hair or sparse bristles down to the neck had changed slightly. The tentacles were longer and thicker than before, and the number of tentacles had increased, making them much fuller. Now, the range of the monster's tentacles extended to the entire neck and jaw joint. Is it because Color of the Abyss has psychic-related effects? Not only had the number of tentacle clusters increased, but the monster's tentacles on my body now emitted a dangerous light mixed with green and purple. In fact, it looked more eerie, like foam or mold, rather than light. It seems to be because of the new traits. ZZZZZZZZZZ, it seems so. I shouldn't be saying this, but those tentacles feel kind of unsettling. I don't know what kind of trait it is, but I feel like I should use it cautiously. Whether it was her innate animalistic senses as a wolf or the intuition of a rancor, Mother of the Sky immediately pointed out the danger of the changed tentacles upon seeing them. Let's check in the morning. After all, I plan to go out to hunt for food in the morning anyway. Color of the Abyss, the trait obtained from Jason. I'll need to spend tomorrow investigating this unknown power. Chapter 192. It feels like something's different. Number 26 said as it woke up in the morning. As usual, Number 26 immediately sensed the changes in me, likely because it considered me someone it needed to protect. Strictly speaking, it's more of a mutual protection relationship, but I don't really mind. Whether in reality or in the game, it's rare to encounter someone like Number 26 who gives unconditional love to someone. I explained briefly about my growth while picking the plants growing at the base of a tree. ZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZ, I grew bigger by consuming a bad guy. The big baby is growing so well. ZZZZZZZZZZ, thanks. Here, have this. Okay. Number 26 extended its tendrils and swept up the mushroom-like plants in one go. Grow quickly so we can bring the little one back. ZZZ, alright. When I patted the well-behaved creature, its pink body glowed brightly. At that moment, PS-111 awakened from dormancy to replenish itself. I generated tooth fairies and offered them to the mother of the sky ant. PS-111. Oh, I'm fine, said the mother of the sky, shuddering at the sight of the tooth fairies and shaking her head. PS-111, however, took all of them, including the mother of the sky's share. Is this a new transformation state? Perhaps due to the psychic power imbued by number 26, PS-111 also seemed curious about the appearance of my tendrils. No, this is a permanent change. The wavelength of an unregistered energy in the database is distorting light. After gulping down the tooth fairies in one go, PS-111's eyes gleamed with interest. If you could provide a sample. No. I don't know what kind of ability color of the abyss is. I can't give it to PS-111, as it might have adverse effects on it or us. It would be troublesome if it became uncontrollable. It would be a headache if it goes wrong and becomes uncontrollable. When I flatly refused, PS-111 sulkily crunched on a tooth fairy. After the simple breakfast, I explained the day's plan to the group. I mentioned that I would need to act alone to test the new trophy I had obtained from a formidable foe. I want to go with the big baby. ZZZZZZZZZZZZ, sorry, but not this time. I still don't know how this trait operates. It's hard to determine whether such uncontrollable traits are safe without trying them out first. I don't want to put anyone at risk unnecessarily. ZZZZZZZZZZZ, instead, help the middle child. Why the middle child? ZZZZZZZZZZZZ, she will need to secure the nest and food while I'm gone. Yesterday, I had a brief conversation with the mother of the sky about what we would do in the morning. She said she would look for a suitable nesting spot while I conducted my experiment. Since she has the best vision among us, she believed she was perfect for the job. She's right, I thought. The mother of the sky has considerable experience fighting alongside me in the game. She knows well the kind of locations amorphs use for nesting. If anyone could find us a proper hideout, it would be her. Even if there were Galagons roaming around, number 26 and PS-111 could easily avoid them, as both can sense Galagon's psychic power. ZZZZZZZZZ, be careful, I said. Don't worry. I'll be as careful as possible, she replied. ZZZZZZZZ, I'm counting on you. And, you be careful too, she added hesitantly, turning her gaze away. She still seemed awkward around me, likely due to yesterday's events. Telling her not to worry would probably make things more awkward, so I just nodded in response. With that, we parted ways to take care of our respective tasks. I ran through the trees, which grew taller and more spread out the higher I climbed. The branches were so numerous and intertwined with other trees that almost no light penetrated through. All I could hear was the sound of the wind whistling through the branches, reminiscent of an animal's growl. The combination of the dark forest and the relentless blizzard outside created a very eerie atmosphere. I ran through the desolate forest for quite some time, not just to put distance between myself and the others, but also because I was searching for traces of a particular creature. I'm sure it's around here somewhere. In the game, Galagon nests are classified as difficult hunting grounds. They are typically found on planets with extreme temperatures, either frigid like this one or scorching with flowing lava, making them hard to access. Even if you manage to prepare well and get inside, there are still challenges to face. Because the area around a Galagon's nest is a labyrinth. Many powerful creatures of Galagon level strength or higher roam around a Galagon nest. These creatures either serve as Galagon's prey or help control their population. Simply put, a planet with a Galagon nest teems with apex-level creatures. Given that there are ice horrors and snowwookers, there must be other creatures here too. I'm well versed in the monsters inhabiting ice planets with dragon nests, having tackled them numerous times in the game before. As my four legs moved tirelessly, the sensory organs under my jaw diligently searched for traces. Soon, I sensed movement in the distance. I lowered my body and slowed my pace. Since I hadn't disabled the intelligent weakling state, my body, including my tail, was small, not even reaching 5 meters. I could easily hide behind a large rock or thick tree. Using the terrain as cover, I cautiously approached the source of the movement. After a while, I spotted it between the trees. Standing at 4 meters tall with a gaunt frame, disproportionately long arms and legs, and a black face contrasting with its white body, It was the hunter of the snowfields, a snowwookers. Despite its reputation as a hunter, its behavior seemed remarkably careless. Its white eyes were clouded as if shrouded in mist, and it paid no attention to my presence nearby. Snowwookers rank low in the food chain on this planet. They are typically vigilant about their surroundings, which makes its current strange behavior particularly unusual. I caught a whiff of a distinct smell. Like the enticing scent of a neighbor cooking pancakes on a rainy day, a delicious aroma permeated the air. The creature was following this delightful scent. Perfect. I maintained a safe distance and trailed the snowwookers. It moved with a hypnotized gait, its eyes fixed straight ahead. In a way, it might indeed be hypnotized. As I followed, the scenery began to change. The most noticeable difference was the color of the densely packed trees. The dark brown trunks were now covered with red moss, resembling bulging veins. The snow on the ground was also tinged red as if syrup had been spilled on it, and it exuded a sweet smell, like actual syrup. I found it. The intensely appetizing smell emanated from the red moss, which was what I had been searching for. The snowwookers, drawn by the scent, licked the moss off the tree ravenously. Each time its tongue touched the moss, it shuddered with pleasure like an addict experiencing an orgasm from a drug hit. This red moss is a toxic substance produced by a powerful apex-level monster. However, it's not a poison that causes pain or hallucinations. It's more akin to a drug. Just as a Venus flytrap lures insects with a sweet scent, this red moss attracts nearby creatures with its enticing odor. Even for someone like me, with the perfect immunity trait that provides immunity to toxins and viruses, the smell is almost irresistible. For a snowwookers, which lacks immunity to toxins, it would be impossible to resist. That alone won't satisfy it. As expected, the creature, which had been pressing its head against the tree, looked even more desperate. This is because the red moss has an incredibly potent narcotic effect. Consuming even a small amount turns one into a slave to this forest. Suddenly energized, the snowwookers darted deeper into the forest filled with red moss. I kept my distance, just close enough to follow without losing it. I couldn't afford to go too deep. Getting lost here would mean certain doom. With my senses on high alert, I slowly followed until I saw other creatures starting to appear. From weak creatures like snowwookers and cave goyles to stronger ones like green galagons, they were all present. Though varied in species, they shared the same appearance, bodies ensnared in the ground, encased in red cocoon-like structures, with only their heads exposed. The roots connecting them to the ground pulsated, injecting something into their bodies. Each time the roots twitched, the captive creatures drooled with blissful expressions. This place was a food storage area. All those ensnared by the red roots were chosen meals by the master of the red forest. Glacier Fiend. The Glacier Fiend is a monster with an upper body resembling a stag beetle and a lower body in the form of a plant with numerous tendrils. Before it takes root, it uses the wings on its back to fly around and find areas rich in prey. Once it finds a suitable location, it anchors itself into the ground and produces a red substance to lure its prey. Beneath the frozen ground where I now stand, its roots must be spreading extensively. And I do not like the name Glacier Fiend as nothing in it reassembles a glacier, so do suggest the name you want me to give it. In essence, this entire vast red forest is its territory. A Glacier Fiend that has successfully rooted itself in the ground becomes a formidable foe. It can control other creatures using the red substance. To be precise, it manipulates their behavior with a narcotic-like substance. The creatures trapped in those cocoons know well who provides the drug. So, when the Glacier Fiend targets someone, they will obey with a death wish. If the Glacier Fiend decides to kill me, every creature in those cocoons will attack me. This should be far enough. I stopped trailing the snowwookers and moved to an area with fewer red tendrils. The master of this food storage is very slow, but its enslaved creatures are not. What I need to do now is something the master of this food storage will despise. I must secure an escape route in case things go wrong, ensuring I can flee quickly. I'm planning to test the psychic breath. My targets were the creatures hanging from the tendrils, experiencing orgasmic pleasure. I positioned myself in a place where I could escape easily and activated the abyssal hue. The fur covering my body stood on end as if charged with static electricity. What's happening? When I raised my battle arm in surprise, I noticed strange colors within the fur. The hues appeared to be both purple and green, writhing as if alive. The mysterious lights surged not just on my arm but all over my body. It doesn't feel like a part of me. It's not detectable as energy either. Unlike the demon beast, The colors flowing through my body felt distinctly alien. It was as if I were wearing the skin of another entity. I had a strong sense that maintaining this form for long would be dangerous. I focused my senses on the tentacles covering my neck and jaw joint. The writhing colors rapidly concentrated on the tentacles. The hues of purple and green became much more vivid. The once drooping tentacles defied gravity and floated in the air, their colors dispersing into the air like ink dropped in water. If the sphere formed during a regular psychic breath was like a purple sun, the one before me now was entirely different. It was an orb barely containing a terrifying array of lights and colors. I hurled the orb of chaos at the red cocoons. Unlike the previous purple beam of psychic breath, this attack took the form of a sphere. The moment the orb hit its target, I was taken aback. The numerous lights within the orb burst out, engulfing the red cocoons. The cocoons struck by the lights lost their original shape, transforming into the same chaotic orb I had fired. The newly formed chaotic orbs then targeted nearby prey, repeating the process. An uncontrollable chain reaction. This was the effect of the psychic breath infused with abyssal hue. A guttural roar filled the air. Grrrr. As the psychic breath spread and consumed all the red cocoons, a roar erupted from within. The master of the forest was enraged. No sooner had the roar subsided than I sensed the movement of various creatures. I wonder how many more storage areas are around here. I relocated to avoid the Glacier Fiend's thralls. Unfortunately for the Glacier Fiend, my experiment isn't over yet. Chapter 193. The King of the Red Forest opened one of his 6 eyes. His roots sensed the intrusion of some creature. Despite their small size, the weight suggested they might be winged beings caught in his trap. Winged beings, the arrogant tribesmen who roamed at the command of the Black and Old King, wreaking havoc wherever they went. Yet the Black and Old King favored them. They were delicious, after all. As he recalled their flavorful juices, he found himself unconsciously drooling. A single drop fell from his elongated jaw, causing the creatures scattered around to tremble. The king knew well how the secretions from his body affected other creatures. Those who came to kill him, upon consuming the red substance, immediately became his slaves. They desired only the red substance, even if it meant the king feasting on their heads. Using this ability, he repeated the cycle of preying on all creatures inhabiting a certain area and then moving on. After hundreds of winters, his power had grown to the extent that even the Black and Old King was wary of him. One day, he would devour that arrogant king too. With that determination, he awaited the approach of new slaves. But as time passed, the unidentified intruders did not appear before him. Instead, what came to him was a discomforting sensation, a mixture of pain and loss. It resurrected feelings from his youth, poking at him relentlessly. Someone was destroying his treasure trove. Realizing this fact, the king was enraged. Who dared to oppose the king of this red forest? The first entity that came to mind was the Black and Old King. It was said he had come himself, dragging his hefty posterior to seek revenge for his messengers being devoured. But the king soon dismissed this thought. The Black and Old King he had seen was a colossal being. If such a creature descended here, he would surely know. Other candidates came to mind, residing underground, in the sky, or atop mountains. Yet none seemed fitting. The intruder causing havoc in his territory seemed to have arrived here recently. No, now the identity of the culprit hardly mattered. The intruder who had dared to disrupt his carefully amassed prey deserved death. The king sent signals through the roots embedded in the earth, commanding the intruder to be captured and brought here. Several nearby creatures burst forth as some of the roots tore open, revealing the beings within. Their appearances and races varied, but all were adorned with red moss on their bodies. They were all his loyal slaves. Krrrr. Grrrr. Kek. Kekek. The slaves, obeying the king's command, dashed out to capture their target. If he waited patiently, the slaves would bring back the wretched intruder as they always did. However, this time, reality unfolded differently from his expectations. One by one, the senses of the slaves sent out to hunt began to fade away. Until a moment ago, the noise that had been audible was now completely silent. An ominous stillness pervaded the entire forest. And the pain from the roots that I had been feeling since earlier, it was getting worse. At first, it felt like being pricked by thorns, but now it was agonizing, like being gnawed by a swarm of insects. Now it wasn't just a problem confined to the food warehouse. His roots, spread across a wide area, were under simultaneous attack. Unable to bear the pain any longer, the king opened all 6 of his eyes. In such situations, the king knew what to do. He focused his senses on his roots and systematically detached the areas where he felt pain. Although he felt considerable pain with each root severed, it was much better than being devoured alive by swarms of insects while still attached to the tree. As he tidied up the sprawling roots, his territory shrank rapidly. It was obvious that it would take a long time to reclaim the territory. The king intended to send more slaves to capture the intruder. Just as he was about to send the signal, something caught his eye. He thought it was light filtering through the branches. Some of the tangled branches had broken, allowing light to enter. But it wasn't, it was a multitude of foam bubbles shining in countless colors. The bubbles of light and color writhed like living creatures. He couldn't tell where they came from or who created them. They just surged toward him like a dizzying wave of foam. His heart started pounding fiercely as the approaching foam bubbles. Alarm and fear. Emotions long dormant in his memory. Unknowingly, the king let out a scream. He urged his slaves to eradicate those bubbles immediately. Just a while ago, the slaves had emerged to protect him, but not anymore. Even as he screamed, the creatures around him remained motionless, as if his command hadn't reached them. Suddenly, the bubbles reached right in front of him. He hurriedly tried to retract his rooted lower half from the ground, but it was too late. The bubbles began to creep onto his body. As they touched him, his tough exoskeleton began to crack. He didn't particularly enjoy hunting prey himself, but that didn't mean he was weak. His exoskeleton was very tough, and his wings were sturdy enough to bear his heavy weight. But against the bubbles, everything was futile. The foam enveloped him like a snake constricting its prey. Memories of being attacked by underground snakes during his weaker days flooded back. As the most nightmare-like moments resurfaced, he writhed all over, resisting. But just as he had been powerless against the memories, reality remained unchanged. The bubbles clung even more strongly, seeming to mock his resistance. In the endless mass of colored foam and light, he slowly suffocated. I didn't expect this. In front of me now is Glacier Fiend, the owner of the Red Forest. Various colored foam bubbles cling to the body of the guy who came out of the ground and collapsed. He looks like he's drowning in water on a frozen planet, barely clinging to life. I thought only psychic breaths were powerful. The targets are the monster's tentacles, psychic reflection gloves, and the harbinger of terror. For the monster's tentacles, the enhancement effect was applied to the psychic breath emitted by the tentacles rather than the tentacles themselves. The enhanced psychic breath changed from emitting heat rays to firing projectiles. When the projectiles hit the target, they generate bubbles of color that cause a destructive effect. These bubbles do not disappear when the target is destroyed but instead rush towards nearby new targets, disappearing only when there is nothing left to consume, much like locusts devouring all the grain. In their wake, only sticky bubbles remain. In this way, the performance of the psychic breath was roughly verified by plundering the creature's food stores. I decided to try out other abilities while I was at it. Next, I tried the psychic reflection gloves, but unfortunately, I couldn't find any special effects. I figured I would have to experience a psychic attack firsthand to properly assess it. Lastly, there was the Harbinger of Terror. This ability induces terrifying hallucinations in sentient beings, driving them mad. Earlier, I had decided to use the Harbinger of Terror on the creature while fleeing from its slaves. Frankly, I didn't have high expectations for this ability since its effect was limited to sentient beings. I just hoped it would immobilize them, so I used it. However, the results far exceeded my expectations. It's different. Activating the Harbinger of Terror drained my strength, and simultaneously, a foam bubble, a mixture of green and purple, formed. The peculiar shimmering bubble flew leisurely and attached itself to the head of the Winterwooker, who had been pursuing me. As soon as it attached, the bubble that had inflated instantly swallowed the creature's head whole. The creature, its head covered by the inverted foam bubble, glowed wildly for a moment before collapsing without lasting long. The real horror occurred next. When the target fell, the foam pile exploded. Foam bubbles that had attached to other slaves nearby engulfed their heads, just as they had with the Winterwooker. Physical force and contagion. The enhanced effect of the Harbinger of Terror spreads to the surroundings through the medium of foam. Though the range was shortened, the power was vastly increased. Furthermore, the target range, previously limited to sentient beings, now applied to multiple creatures. After dealing with the pursuing slaves, I immediately tested it on Glacier Fiend. If it works on him, hunting in the future will become incredibly easy. I activated the Harbinger of Terror successively while darting through the forest. Countless foam bubbles passed through the trees and flew towards Glacier Fiend. This is an advantage. Although the range is reduced, being able to fire multiple times is invaluable. It's especially effective against stationary enemies like the one we encountered. Ultimately, Glacier Fiend, overwhelmed by the harbinger of terror without realizing, fell before me, a much weaker being. I didn't expect it to be this easy. Glacier Fiend is a far more formidable opponent than the ice horror pushed by force. Without the abyssal hue, I wouldn't have been able to deal with the slaves as easily as I did. He may be addicted to drugs, but he still possesses his original abilities fully. Moreover, his immunity to death and inability to feel pain make him even more dangerous. Furthermore, because the Red Forest is constantly visited by creatures wishing to become slaves, there seems to be no end to the killing. However, that doesn't mean the main body is weak. With a tough exoskeleton, immunity to various attacks, and wings for swift movement, it's on par with the White Galagon in terms of melee combat alone. There may be the disadvantage of slow movement on land, but with wings, it's hard to see that as a flaw. Having effortlessly dispatched such a dangerous predator without sustaining a single injury, I thought to myself, let's think after we kill. Glacier Fiend had only lost consciousness, he wasn't dead yet. I approached him. His head, resembling a stag beetle, was now covered in colorful foam. All 6 eyes were turned inside out, and blood foam continued to ooze from his mouth. I swung the pincers of his tail to strike his neck. With a loud crunch, I hit the exoskeleton covering his throat. Several more strikes shattered the exoskeleton, and I raised my tail high again to completely crush his throat. That should be it. Ugh. Pain nullification activated. An incredibly intense pain surged from the tip of my tail, unlike anything I had ever felt before. I involuntarily sank to the ground as strength drained from my legs. It's burning. The pain felt like being engulfed in flames. Memories of childhood suddenly flooded back. When I was young, I suffered severe burns in a traffic accident. As a result, I spent most of my childhood in the hospital. The excruciating sensation I felt back then was now being vividly reenacted in my body. I need to regain consciousness. Pain nullification activated. As if malfunctioning, a translucent text box appeared in front of me. I checked to see if I was on fire. There were no flames visible anywhere on my body. Even as my mind grew faint, I focused all my strength on my auxiliary systems. The 4 auxiliary systems under my chin began to search for the cause of the pain. Eventually, they found something at the tip of my tail. The surface of the pincers was covered in a mixture of colors of foam. The abyssal hue. I immediately opened my jaw wide and snapped down on the middle of my tail. Flesh from the tail flew out, but there was no pain at all. The overwhelming burning sensation dripping from the foam-covered area made it impossible to feel anything else. I continued to bite my tail meticulously while checking the foam covering the pincers. The foam, although slow, continued to grow in size. What had initially been a small patch now engulfed the entire pincer. Ugh. Pain nullification activated. The pain was so intense that my jaw weakened. Unable to bite any longer, I clenched my mouth shut and pulled the tail with my combat arms and legs. As a result, a terrifying sound came from the tail. Muscles tore, and bones snapped. The exoskeleton and composite scales had long since been shattered. The foam had already swallowed up the entire tail. The eerie foam mass now aimed to devour my tail. My mind had reached its limit with the intense pain. Please. With all my strength, I finally tore the tail off with my combat arm. 2/3 of the tail fell to the ground. The foam attached to the fallen tail lost its characteristic luster in an instant. With the cause removed, the burning sensation that had been pressing on my brain vanished as if it were a lie. Instead, pain arose from the severed area, but I had no strength to feel the pain. Lying half-conscious on the ground, a new text box appeared before me. Evolution conditions for Quasi-Saint have been partially met. Apex 2/30ths incomplete. With Glacier Fiend's death, the light disappeared from the foam attached to him. Even though Glacier Fiend was dead and the foam had changed, I couldn't relax. The foam created by psychic breath didn't stop until the target disappeared. Just because the situation had changed didn't mean the foam's effect had actually dissipated. Knowing that merely looking wouldn't change anything, I reached out with a finger and lightly pricked the foam. I intended to cut off my finger as soon as the pain started, but even after waiting, I felt nothing. So the effect is lost upon death. The foam created as the fearmonger seemed to affect the minds of living beings differently from psychic breath. It might be invoking the most terrifying pain for the target. As soon as the foam touched me, I felt the burning pain. Glacier Fiend and the slaves who were affected by the foam likely experienced a similar sensation. I need to use it with caution. Having experienced it firsthand, I understood. The newfound abyssal hue was, quite literally, a double-edged sword. Chapter 194. Emerging from excruciating agony, my mind swiftly returned. As my mind stabilized, the bristled hairs, once stiff with tension, settled calmly. Though the pain persisted from having the clawed tail torn off raw, it was incomparable to the trauma-inducing agony. It was only after my body improved that I could objectively assess the depths of my abilities. The risk may be fatal, but should I describe it as high risk, high return? Apart from the pain I felt, I gained something substantial. The enhanced psychic breath and the Watcher of Fear. The former consumed the opponent until their physical form vanished, while the latter awakened the most dreadful pain dormant in their memory. Yet, the effects of the applied attributes are secondary. It depends on how proficiently I utilize them. The real importance lies in the abyssal hue. The ability to activate it at will is a great advantage. Being able to choose when to use it. This means enjoying two effects with one attribute. For example, using psychic breath to snipe enemies as usual, then switching to shooting foam that devours them until they die during their moment of carelessness is operational. The Watcher of Fear is similar. Unlike the original, the abyssal version affects multiple targets. Sprinkling it over a crowded space where enemies are clustered would be very effective. If in the future, new superpower traits are acquired and the abyssal essence is applied, it's akin to obtaining two traits at once. Could it also be reflected in the new abilities? According to the text box, currently, only 3 traits are affected by the abyssal hue. Traits unrelated to combat, like humanity or predator sense, are not affected. Superpower reflection gloves are a subject, but they haven't been experimented with yet due to unmet activation conditions. If the newly acquired superpower traits are also subject to the abyssal essence, it would significantly empower my lacking superpower combat abilities. I'll have to figure this out while hunting. Confirmation of the application of the abyssal essence seems likely with the acquisition of new psychic power traits. Fortunately, the place I am in is a planet where Galagon's nest is located. It's one of the places where acquiring superpower-related traits is easy. That's settled. I need to leave here immediately. Though the forest's owner is dead, the danger still lingers. There are still hundreds of various-sized cocoons around. Inside them are slaves of the red substance, waiting to awaken. With Glacier Fiend, the provider of narcotics, dead, it's a given that they'll wake up soon. But before I go, I looked down at the decapitated body of Glacier Fiend. Fresh meat, reaching up to 15 meters when combined with the lower half buried in the ground, lay sprawled on the floor. Being in the state of cunning weakling, my body cannot exceed 5 meters. So, taking the whole body is impossible, but it doesn't matter. Thanks to the Essence Harvester's jaw, I can obtain genetic essence by just eating the head. I grabbed the head of Glacier Fiend, resembling a stag beetle. After firmly securing it with one of the combat arms, I exerted force and pulled it sharply. Flesh around the neck, barely connected, tore as the head separated. Thanks to the Essence Harvester's jaw acquired upon becoming a juvenile, just eating the head allows me to exhibit the same digestive effect as if I had eaten the entire body. The size difference makes it difficult to carry the whole body. So, I plan to cut off only the head and take it with me. I can't let the drug dealers get away with it. Glacier Fiend is a monster with many useful traits. As a type that hunts prey over vast territories, it's not something you come across often. If I miss this opportunity, who knows when I'll get another chance, so I must make sure to take its head at least. As I tried to grab the creature's head and leave, the nearby cocoons began to wriggle. The closest one burst open, and a creature emerged. A monster with elongated legs, resembling a slender dragon, charged at me. Its name is Snow Banshee. With its almost pallid skin and striking red tongue, it's a small carnivorous creature. It attacks by lying in wait with its body concealed in the snow, then snatching prey with its thick tongue when it approaches. But its terror lies in perfect concealment. The one in front of me is under the influence of drugs and is not in its right mind. Instead of hiding and fighting, it recklessly lunged its tongue at me. I grabbed the tongue flying towards me with my arm near my chest. When in the state of intelligent weakling, the body shrinks, but the muscles around the chest arm develop prominently. While not as strong as the combat arms, they can be useful when fighting enemies of similar size. Just like this. Gulp. I exerted force on the arm holding the tongue and pulled the creature towards me with all my might. Perhaps not expecting to be pushed back, the creature stumbled forward lifelessly. I swiftly approached the collapsed creature and bit its neck behind the head. With a gruesome sound of bones breaking, the creature's body slackened. I'll take this too. I placed the creature, measuring 1 meter 50 centimeters, on top of Glacier Fiend's head on my back. In the meantime, other cocoons started bursting one by one. Monsters awakened from the cocoons also intervened to eat Glacier Fiend's corpse. Knowing where the red substance comes from, that's what they're up to. Let's get out of here quickly. While the others were distracted elsewhere, I quickly moved away from the center. There were no obstacles in the periphery since I destroyed all the cocoons with psychic breath earlier. Except for one. Grrrr. With a bulky 4 meters physique, a gaunt body with disproportionately long arms and legs, and a black face contrasting with its white body. The snow wooker suddenly emerged from the forest, blocking my path. It's that guy from earlier. It was the snow wooker I encountered before. Its gaze was fixed precisely on my back, on Glacier Fiend's head. It seems like it will chase me to death even if I run away. It's better to deal with it here and now. Better this way. The snow wooker's heart is needed for the mother of the sky. I laid the things on my back on the ground. As it seemed I wouldn't retreat easily, the creature growled threateningly. The snow wooker approached me step by step. It looks quite intimidating now, being about twice my size. I lunged at the creature with all 4 legs. At the right moment, the creature swung its abnormally long arms. My combat arm collided with its arm. Brew. The snow wooker has far more elbow joints compared to regular animals. As a result, its arms can move flexibly enough to appear whip-like. Its arms slither over my combat arm like a snake. The sharp claws of the creature aim for one target, my eyes. It seeks to incapacitate me by attacking my vision. True to its nickname as the Hunter of the Snow, it engages in cunning attacks right from the start. But I expected the creature to come out like this. With the weight on my hind legs, I swung my front leg upward. Like a horse kicking, my front leg struck the creature's lower abdomen forcefully. Ugh. Receiving a blow to its groin, the creature staggered and released its arms. With the front leg back in place, I rolled my foot, rotating my body in place. Then, I swung my tail with force. Although the pincers haven't regenerated yet, the tail, resembling a log, serves as a sufficient weapon. Its blunt end struck the creature's legs like a cudgel. Brew. The creature leapt up. Its tail, which had been flying low, brushed past the underside of its feet. The creature is more agile than it looks, but this too was within my expectations. My real intention wasn't the tail but the attack that followed. Half turned, my back faces the creature. And on my back are the faces of the many-faced ones. 5 faces quickly emerged and opened wide. Ultrasound waves, inducing paralysis, poured towards the target. The snow wooker fell from the air, paralyzed, and landed with a thud. My jaws spread into a grin, covering its head. My teeth relentlessly pierced the creature's black face. Then, as I exerted pressure on its jaw, its head slowly straightened. Even in the agony of being crushed, the creature didn't flinch a finger. Its only act was a silent scream. Shortly after, a sound of cracking walnut shells was heard, and a sweet liquid flowed into my mouth. It was thick yet smooth, reminiscent of chocolate pudding. I'd like to have more, but now that there's not only me but also a mouth, I barely managed to resist. What the mother of the sky needs is just the heart, but it would be strange to just give her the heart. So, carefully gathering the prey, I left the red forest. As I reached the outskirts, I saw that the red moss was already withering. The forest, deprived of its owner, was returning to its original state. If even the beasts fighting inside leave, this place will quiet down just like before. Focusing on the auxiliary organs, I followed the path I had taken. If I go to where I stayed until morning, there should still be traces of the creature's movement. I ran through the dark forest without resting, for hours after leaving the red forest. Because of the branches, hardly any sunlight penetrated, and the trees were so similar that it was easy to get lost, but it didn't apply to me. My innate hyper-awareness is guiding me where to go. I felt the presence of wild creatures, including snow banshees, a few times along the way, but they all avoided me. There were no creatures approaching me, perhaps due to the smell of Snowwooker's blood emanating from my body. Continuing on, I suddenly arrived at the pit I dug yesterday. Stopping nearby, I bent down and brought the auxiliary organs closer to the ground. A faint scent left by the kids was detected. The traces were sporadically following in one direction. I followed the faint traces. Along the way, there were traces deliberately made, like small stone stacks or claw marks on trees. They seemed intentionally crafted to be so well hidden that without the auxiliary organs, I wouldn't have noticed them. The entrance itself was narrow, and with trees surrounding it, it wasn't easy to see. It was a well-hidden place. So much so that even I wouldn't have noticed without the auxiliary organs. Looks okay. With so much baggage, I couldn't go in like this. I threw the items inside one by one and entered the burrow. Inside, it smelled musty and nauseating, perhaps a place once used by other animals, instead of the usual earthy scent. As I surveyed the entrance, someone appeared from inside. Sooner than expected, huh? A griffin with a lion's body covered in golden fur with an eagle's head, the mother of the sky. She greeted me with her amber eyes shining. I thought it would take all day. ZZZZZZZZZZZZ, I've got all the necessary information. I handed her the Snowwooker's torso. What's this? A Snowwooker. ZZZZZZZZZZZ, yeah. You need the heart, right? Oh. Ah, yes. Thank you. ZZZZZZZZZZZZZ, you managed to find such a good place. Well, I didn't really did much. ZZ, huh? Once you go in, you'll see. I divided the luggage with her and entered the burrow. Inside, it was quite spacious. Would you call it a gallery shape? It seemed to be elongated towards the entrance and widened as it went inside. Big guy. At that moment, number 26 flew towards me. Number 26, who had been waiting in the common area, approached me with a pink glow. The little one hopped onto my head. Hey, how have you been? ZZZZZZZZZZZZ, fine. It was fun wandering around. Seeing the welcoming creature, I couldn't help but feel good. As I petted it, something strange caught my eye in the dim cave interior. A creature of unknown identity lay in the corner of the common area. I thought the cave was old and smelled nauseating, but it wasn't. The source of the smell was that creature. Seeing no signs of heartbeat or muscle movement, it was undoubtedly a corpse. Next to the large creature's body lay PS-111. Subcontroller Amorph. Have you arrived? ZZZZZZZZZ, what's next to it? It's a shark bear. I thought it was an unclaimed cave, but it wasn't. Hearing what the mother of the sky said, I was slightly surprised. While not classified as an apex, a shark bear is still a formidable creature. The creature is a formidable fighter with exceptional combat skills, a mix of a shark's head and a bear's body. Its resistance to psychic powers is a weakness, though. ZZZZZZZZ, oh, really? Come to think of it, there was something strange about the shark bear's corpse. From what I know, it's quite large. If it stood up, it would be similar in size to the Snowwooker. However, the body detected by the auxiliary organs wasn't that big. It was as if it had been compressed, like squeezed into a vice. I was resting in the cave when it suddenly came in. That's when number 26 caught it. It's a troublemaker who came into the house where the babies live. I did a good job, right? The culprit behind the creation of a cube steak made from a bear with a shark's head. Sea Demon number 26 smiled brightly from my head. Chapter 195. Of course. Though it is always friendly and with a childish tone, I sometimes forget, number 26 is a sea demon. Sea demons possess not only a strong sense of kinship but also a strong territorial instinct. Since the enemy entered what it considers its territory, it's only natural. But still, it seems like it's gotten stronger. Maybe it's because of the green Galagon from yesterday. Previously, after absorbing the psychic power of a dead sea demon, it grew rapidly. It might be another growth spurt thanks to devouring the green Galagon's corpse, or more precisely, the psychic power contained within it. Both Galagons and sea demons are powerful psychic beings. ZZZZZZZ, well done. Am I amazing? ZZ, yes. As I send a wave of affirmation, it lights up with joy. Seeing it shine so brightly in the dark cave, it seems receiving praise is quite pleasing. If I recover, I can do a lot too. ZZZZZZZZZZ, that's why I brought this for you. I set down the snow banshee in front of PS-111. ZZZZZZZZZ. Eat with the shark bear. The head of the creature you're carrying contains a considerable amount of energy. Friend, no. It seemed eager for the glacier fine's head I was carrying. I was about to refuse outright, but number 26 intervened first. To grow big, big ones need to eat a lot. If we consume and analyze that creature, I can also acquire new abilities. No, you can't. Sorry. When scolded by number 26, it lowered its head with a sullen attitude. ZZZZZZZZZZZZZ. Let's do this. After eating, I'll go out and fetch a new prey for you. Thank you for your consideration. After petting PS 111, I started preparing the meal. Transformation mode that increases the chance of prey effect activation, the embodiment of hunting. The cooldown has just ended. What kind of traits will come out this time? I have a few traits in mind, but who knows what will actually come out. With expectations for new traits, I activated the symbol of hunt. Adha, the exiled daughter of Odgrad, woke up feeling an unfamiliar chill. It wasn't actually cold. In fact, the place she was in was warm enough to fit within the top 10 warmest places on this planet. Galagons, typically dominating the upper echelons in any ecosystem, don't nest just anywhere. Galagons instinctively seek out places where psychic power is concentrated. Psychic power is a force that distorts reality and transcends physical laws. Places where this power is concentrated tend to be abnormal. In a cold place, warmth is comforting, while in a hot place, coolness is the nest's comfort. This cave was no exception. Warm geothermal heat rose from the ground, and nearby, there was even a spring with fresh water flowing. But that's not all. There were vines on the cave walls bearing sweet fruits. These fruits, filled with sweet juice, were a favorite delicacy among the young of her kin. Despite being an abnormally comfortable place, she felt uneasy. Because she knew where this was. This was the place most cherished by her kin, where the hatchlings dwelt. It was clear how they viewed her. Despite her scales tinged with vine-like hues, they refused to acknowledge her. To them, she was always just a weakling with a disability. If they were her true family, they wouldn't treat her like this. They had acknowledged her as a hunter. She thought of them. The ones who cared for her weakness, nurtured her as a hunter. Ugly but a gentle adult and friend in their own way. Gentle, but sometimes showing a frightening side, the little adult. The weak child brought by the little adult. And the adult she liked. Strangely, he frequently changed his appearance. The little adult said it was about growing, but it looked very different to her. Her previous kin didn't grow like that. They didn't grow bigger, only to shrink again. Still, she liked the big adult. No matter how his appearance changed, he was still the big adult. Of course, she didn't like his recent smaller form. But right now, she wanted to see that ugly appearance. She gently got up and concentrated strength as the little adult used to do. The little adult was very skilled with strength. Any creature she had seen, even the big adult, couldn't do what it casually did. She spread her strength wide and thin. It was so thin that other kin besides her wouldn't even recognize it properly. The thin thread-like strength spread beyond the cave to the outside. As she exerted her strength beyond its limits, her legs wobbled, but she managed somehow. They saw her as weak and incompetent. She was weak, that was true, but not incompetent. So, she decided to exploit their arrogance. If I'm weak, I must seize the opportunity when the opponent lets their guard down. It was a method the big adult often used in battle. Through the widely spread strength, she could confirm that the watchers were dozing off. Now that she had obtained the desired information, it was time to act. She cautiously stepped out of the cave. Outside, kin with vine-like hues like her were nodding off just like her. As she had sensed when she first arrived, her kin didn't seem to be in good shape. Most looked emaciated, and the hatchlings were so thin from not eating properly. But she had no reason to care about that, nor time. She needed to flee quickly while the guards were still drowsy. Where are you going? Just as she was about to take flight, a Galagon flew over. A kin with white gems resembling snow in the forest in front of the cave had appeared. Even to Adha, born with mutations, the impressive figure with white scales and black spots was so beautiful that admiration came naturally. Surely, the influence of her mother played a significant role in her ability to boast exceptional beauty. But the true strength of that female wasn't her beauty alone. In a planet dominated by Odgrad, to raise a new flock was very difficult, but she was strong enough to establish a new flock. In fact, in this flock, there were a few more individuals besides her. Nevertheless, Hem maintained her position as the leader. Seeing that, her strength certainly surpassed normal white Galagons. Perhaps she positioned somewhere between white and black. In other words, a presence one would absolutely not want to encounter. Adha, upon seeing the white female, tensed up. Interesting. This method. Touched with her forepaw the thread of power Adha had spread. In an instant, the wide-spreading net vanished. It seemed she had snatched away and released Adha's control. Despite being overwhelmed by the opponent's power, Adha didn't retreat. Witnessing her determination, nodded slightly. Meaningless resistance. It's pointless. The difference in power. Don't you understand? I do. Then surrender. Refusal. Purple flames flickered in Hamort's eyes, and Adha felt her body trembling. The immense pressure, reminiscent of facing Odgrad, overwhelmed her. But she didn't give up. Because the adult she respected never gave up, no matter how tough the situation. Adha put strength into her 4 legs and glared at Hamort. The tentacles on her mouth were tightly tensed, ready to unleash purple lightning at any moment. How much time had passed? Surprisingly, it was Hamort who retreated. Stepping back, she sent a short gesture. Daughter of the meteor. Stubbornness. I like it. The slightly tilted crescent-shaped figure of the opponent seemed to mock and admire at the same time. However, it was a fleeting sight, and she immediately raised her forepaw to crush Adha. Daughter of the meteor. Weak. Hamort. Strong daughter. Necessary. Adha and Hamort had a more than tenfold difference in physique alone. There was an incomparable gap in strength. Despite knowing this fact, Adha didn't give up. She clawed with her claws and sent purple lightning, but everything was in vain. Yet she kept resisting. Even though that interior might be comfortable, she didn't want to go back. If she followed the orders of a powerful opponent, it wouldn't be much different from being chased away from her previous flock. As she struggled, Hamort unexpectedly brought up something entirely unexpected. Hamort. Prepared. Weak daughter. Power to make strong. Strength. Understand. Impossible. Resistance. I'll explain if you give up. Upon hearing those words, Adha stopped moving. Now that she thought about it, Hamort could have broken her wing bones but didn't. Clearly, there was something they wanted from her. Once, the adult said, when facing a formidable enemy, utilize everything at your disposal. Even if it's the enemy's strength. Explanation. Request. Fine. Go back to the nest. I'll explain. I don't know what Hamort wants, what she's thinking. For now, I need to find out that part first. This should be sufficient. In the dead of night when everyone was asleep, I was adjusting the new nest. This ancient underground cave had been transformed into a morph's nest for a long time, fueled by the energy acquired during the day. On the floor lay marshes aiding in the amorph's recovery, while black mucus dripped from the ceiling and walls. The heat rising from the nest was being sucked in by the smog towers, releasing it underground instead of on the surface to prevent the steam from escaping through the cave entrance. Of course, with time, the land around here would dry up completely, but I don't plan on staying that long. The symbiotes are functioning well. Despite sustaining significant injuries, number 26, with a broken beak, had symbiote spores I implanted attached to the body of the injured Sky Mother. Through the spores connected to the nest, healing fluid and energy were continuously supplied, so her wounds would significantly improve by tomorrow morning. By the way, I couldn't attach them to PS-111. Being a hybrid of machine and organism, a mutant screamer, he couldn't benefit from the symbiotic effect. A machine needing the most care, of all things. Perhaps I should take comfort in the fact that he's the most efficient means of recovery among us. I looked at the dormant PS-111. Traces of the food I had eaten during the day floated around beside him as he lay in the warm marsh. Half-dissolved bones, the skull of a glacier fiend. Ah, just looking at that annoys me again. The symbol of Hunt, an evolved mode of the perfect organism, greatly increases the chance of acquiring genetic essence. A morph's success rate in predation is low. Typically, one would need to prey on dozens of individuals to barely obtain the desired genetic essence. However, with the symbol of Hunt, just preying on a single individual would suffice to exhibit the predatory effect. This effect also applies to genetic samples or organisms I haven't killed. However, in this case, the acquired trait is obtained not in a normal state but as an imperfect trait. Nevertheless, imperfect traits can be used as materials for the transcendence system, and if the same trait is acquired twice, it can be restored as a perfect trait, so they're not entirely useless. Due to this, whenever I ate prey with strategically important value, I used the symbol of hunt. The problem is that it doesn't increase the predation success rate to 100%. The skull resembling an ugly deer beetle gave me no reward. I knew the predation effect wouldn't always activate, but of all things, it had to be that the predatory effect wouldn't work on Glacier Fiend. Even after eating everything and not seeing any messages popping up, I thought I might have missed something. Only after licking up even the blood droplets on the floor did I realize the predatory effect hadn't been triggered at all. TCH. Among the traits that can be obtained from Glacier Fiend is a trait that generates narcotic substances. When combined with my Smog Tower trait, it becomes a very formidable ability. It's regrettable that the predatory effect didn't trigger. It could have been used as a fusion material. Nothing can be done about what's already failed. To distract myself from Glacier Fiend, I checked the text box. Unfortunately, I didn't acquire any traits from the creature, but I could exhibit predatory effects from other prey like snow banshees and shark bears. The trait from the snow banshee's genetic essence is stealth movement. It drastically reduces sound and traces when moving, a special defense trait. It's inferior compared to the unknown creature's fur from the intelligent weakling mode, but it's not without its advantages. It significantly reduces body weight as a side effect. With stealth movement, the bone structure becomes extremely robust but is replaced by lightweight synthetic materials. When I applied the trait during the day, I felt tingling all over my body, reminiscent of adolescence. Nevertheless, this trait is incredibly helpful for evading enemy tracking or concealing oneself even after releasing the intelligent weakling. I used stealth movement effectively in the game to lure enemies or set traps. Now, on to. From the shark bear I didn't kill, I obtained enhanced endocrine gland as an imperfect trait. When fused with the internal organ trait muscle reinforcement, it yields the trait Berserk Synapse. Berserk Synapse secretes special chemicals to significantly enhance physical abilities. With this trait, one becomes faster, stronger, and gains more vitality than before. While it doesn't offer anything special in the game, it's praised for its versatility. It's one of the essential traits I need right now. Berserk Synapse helps in utilizing stored energy more efficiently. With this trait alone, I can reduce the energy consumption of the symbol of Hunt or Divine Halberd. After this, I should look for more shark bears. To use imperfect traits as fusion materials, I need 2 of the same traits. To fuse Berserk Synapse, I need to obtain enhanced endocrine glands again. With that, I dismissed the text box. With all adjustments to the nest completed, I quietly nestled into the marsh. Wrapped in the warmth enveloping my body, I pondered the tasks ahead. Now, it's a long-term plan. The experiments with the newly acquired traits are over, and the new nest is secured. The kids are recovering quickly, so it's time to prepare to bring in the Adha. The white Galagon that took away Adha seemed quite intelligent, so the fight won't be easy. I need to prepare as much as possible. To fully demonstrate good strategy and excellent skills, one must establish a solid foundation. And for a morph, that foundation is none other than traits. It's essential to possess a variety of traits so that I can proactively deal with any enemy. With Glacier Fiend, Ice Horror, and Galagon, there are bound to be others. I'm well aware of which creatures predominantly inhabit the area around the Galagon's nest. Until I fell asleep, I contemplated what to target first. Chapter 196. Being together is nice. ZZZZZZZZ, is that so? I wish we had the little one with us. ZZZZZZZZZZZZ, don't worry. We'll bring her back for sure. Okay. I gently stroked number 26's head as it nestled on top of mine. In response, it softly caressed my horn with its tentacles. It's cute just to see it like that. Unidentifiable physiological responses detected from the main controller. I think I have a rough idea of what that means. The middle one statement is quite intriguing. Requesting information sharing. Why are you asking me that? After recovering from my injuries with a good rest, I set out with the kids. It was to hunt for new prey together. This opponent is tough to hunt alone. This enemy isn't like Ice Horrors, who are strong on their own, or like Glacier Fiend, who command numerous minions. They are bothersome in a different sense. Even the Mother of the Sky seemed shaken when I brought this up. I glanced briefly at the Mother of the Sky, PS 111, chattering away. Is that a new form she's taken? Thanks to the hearts of both the Ice Horror and the Snowwooker that I bought, she gained the power of the Wendigo. The Wendigo of space survival looks quite different from the legendary depiction. It resembles a black, skeletal deer walking on two legs. The Wendigo's power is divided into two main categories: temperature control, such as generating cold, and mental manipulation of other beings. Unlike griffins, which excel in short-range flight and ground combat, the Wendigo is specialized in combat support and crowd control. These abilities are more advantageous in group battles than in solo ones. Perhaps that's why the Wendigo is beloved by colleagues it operates with. Paradoxically, Wendigos are unpopular with most wolf players. Their appearance is so unattractive, earning them a notorious reputation. It was definitely like that. Currently, the Mother of the Sky's appearance reflected some of the Wendigo's traits, but it wasn't bad at all. She had the head of a bald eagle, magnificent tusks, and a body covered in golden fur, all similar to a lioness, but with a few additions. 2 black horns sprouted from her head, and black wavy patterns adorned her body. All these changes were thanks to her special skill: the camouflage of the huntress. Normally, when a wolf reaches the level of divine transformation, they choose which phantom beast they will transform into. According to the setting, once this choice is made, it cannot be changed. However, the special skill possessed by the Mother of the Sky, the camouflage of the huntress, does not adhere to this restriction. As she explained it, she could transform into one of 4 additional phantom beasts besides the griffin she initially chose. If the conditions necessary for transformation are unlocked, one can transform into a phantom beast unlocked once a month. For example, if she were to transform into a Wendigo here, she wouldn't be able to change into a different animal until a month has passed. The duration one can maintain the transformation varies depending on the phantom beast. It's said that a Wendigo's transformation can last up to 5 days. So she's refraining from transforming into a Wendigo for now, since some traits of the unlocked phantom beast are reflected even in griffin form. Like how she now has antlers on her head. Also, she doesn't feel any cold at all now, thanks to Wendigo's cold immunity. Since she has unlocked 2 additional phantom beasts, only 2 remain. The materials needed to unlock transformable phantom beasts are generally of a difficulty similar to that of the Wendigo. In other words, one must hunt apex-level monsters. It might be good to look for monsters that could help her along with number 26's growth in the future. Come to think of it, she unlocked another phantom beast before the Wendigo. How did she obtain that? While pondering this sudden question, the Mother of the Sky called out to me. Where do you intend to start from? It'll take a while if you start searching randomly. ZZZZZZZ, let's head north. North. Our nest is in the middle of a forest near the beginning of the mountain range. If we go north, we'll encounter the mountains forming the range. Today, we plan to investigate one of those many mountains. ZZZZZZZZZZ, didn't you see them from the Twin Peaks? According to the report received before losing terminal functionality, yes. As soon as I woke up in the morning, I asked PS-111 if it had seen the creatures I was looking for. The mutant screamers, acting as intermediate terminals, remember the information relayed by lower-level screamers. It seems that PS-111 remembers what the lower-level creatures had encountered. If sighted from the Twin Peaks, the target this time has a very extensive hunting ground. If sighted from the forest near the beginning of the mountain range at the Twin Peaks, then we should consider everything in this vicinity to be the enemy's activity range. Since the enemy nests only in very high places, there might be nests up above. The Twin Peaks are so high that they can be seen from the ice plains. We'll have to go there and check it out, but it's not unlikely that the enemy might inhabit such places. Anyway, to rescue Adha, we must capture the enemy. Fighting against a Galagon requires a skill that is absolutely necessary. That is, the ability to fly. Not just any flight, but a level of ability that allows for high-speed movement and space navigation. Galagons start from hatchlings and the entire species can fly. As seen with Adha, flight abilities are actively used in combat by Galagons. Moreover, white Galagons have aerial combat utility in addition to the hyperspeed ability possessed by green Galagons. To stand against such creatures, I too must possess powerful flight abilities. If it's about flight abilities, sky wolves also have them, but sky wolves are beings that live by absorbing intangible energy naturally present. Since this planet has a nest of dragons where psychic powers are highly concentrated, it's possible to encounter sky wolves here. The problem is, those creatures never come down to the ground until they die. Without the ability to fly, even meeting them isn't easy. Capturing a Galagon would grant flight-related traits, but the issue is that they live in groups. Ultimately, the only option left is the entity we're trying to find at the Twin Peaks, the Crystalwing. Today's goal is to find the Crystalwing nest. To think I have to do that tedious task even here. The Mother of the Sky shook her head as if she were annoyed. At that moment, number 26 lightly jabbed my head with his tentacles. Big guy, what's a Crystalwing? Zzzzzzzzzzzzz, a creature with shimmering wings. Wings. It seemed like a foreign concept to him, as it signaled that it didn't know. Zzzzzzzzzzz, it's attached to Adha. I wanted to spread out my wingsuit to show it, but in the state of being temporarily disabled, the wingsuit couldn't be used. Nevertheless, as an intelligent being, number 26 quickly understood what I was trying to convey. It flaps its wings. Flap, flap. Zzzzzzzzzzz, that's right. Number 26 extended 2 tentacles and waved them around. In reality, Adha's flight was more akin to graceful floating in the air. Although different from what it described, the meaning was conveyed, so it didn't matter much. So we continued northward towards the Twin Peaks. As we approached the mountains, the surrounding scenery gradually changed. Instead of trees diminishing, the terrain became rugged. There were ice chunks sticking out of the ground for tens of meters, and bottomless crevasses whose depth couldn't be fathomed. It was pure nature itself. If I were human, I would never want to come here. Of course, it doesn't apply to us. I firmly planted my foot on the ground. My body soared through the air, leaping over crevasses spanning tens of meters wide. It's fun. Every time, number 26, who was on my head, seemed to enjoy it. The Mother of the Sky and PS 111, who were behind me, also leapt lightly and followed suit. Everyone had exceptional physical abilities, so the rugged terrain was no problem at all. After reaching the mountains, cliffs, or rather, steep slopes greeted us. Again, it was no problem. Our pace remained steady without any decrease in speed. When hunger struck, we hunted the wildlife roaming the mountains. Snow banshees cautiously moving along the cliffs became the main prey. There's one more over there. I'll attack. When the Mother of the Sky spots prey with her keen eyesight, PS 111 attacks it with the demolisher attached to her tail. Crunch. A snow banshee struck by the energy projectile disintegrated. Its body, falling towards the cliff below, stopped in mid-air as if suspended. Got it. When number 26 waved its tentacles, the creature's body trembled before bursting with a popping sound, splitting into 4 pieces. The shattered body parts transformed into chunks of meat, resembling meatballs. The spilling blood defied the laws of physics, being sucked into the meaty chunks. Impressive. As befitting a sea demon, it adeptly controlled the psychic power. Jason, who we fought a few days ago, probably wouldn't have shown such skill. Number 26 handed us the chunks of meat that were once snow banshees, hanging on the cliff. Big baby, have this. Zzzzzzzzz, thank you. Despite not needing to, it directly fed the meat chunks into my mouth. The slightly chewy texture, infused with a hint of soy sauce, filled my mouth. Like yesterday, the meat of the snow banshee tasted like jerky and dried squid. It looks like a tadpole, but it's fascinating. Having filled our bellies intermittently during the journey, we finally arrived near the Twin Peaks after quite some time. Above, the sky was filled with ash-colored clouds, while ahead, another peak was visible, aligning with this one. Behind that peak, a vast ridge stretched out, parallel to the Twin Peaks. Looking down from the peak, the frozen ground below was stunningly picturesque. I hadn't seen such a magnificent landscape since meeting the bubble amoebas with number 26. If I hadn't come to this world, I would never have seen anything like this in my life. Admiring the grand sculpture crafted by nature wasn't just me. The Mother of the Sky beside me was also lost in contemplation of the scenery. Friend, aren't you cold? I am designed to function normally even at temperatures below -150 degrees Celsius. I don't understand what you're saying, but that's amazing. Thank you for the main controller's praise. Despite the emotional response being quite different from ours, number 26 and PS 111 were unaffected. Anyway, since we had reached our destination, we explored the area near the peak together. It didn't take long after we started wandering before we found the desired traces. As you said, there's a crystalwing nest nearby. She placed the branch she had been pecking with her beak on the ground. They were branches from the trees that made up the forest around the mountain. However, there was a difference: jewels were embedded in the branches. These are branches brought to build the nest. The jewel-like substances were material formed when the saliva of crystalwings dried up. Over time, crystalwing bodily fluids transformed into substances resembling jewels. While they looked like gems, they weren't actually minerals. In fact, it would be an insult to compare them to gems. Since the creature's bodily fluids were overwhelmingly expensive, the fluid crystals were used as materials for advanced alloys or spaceship computers. If I weren't a morph, just discovering this nest alone would earn me enough money to buy a battleship. With meaningless thoughts in mind, I followed the glittering branches. The sporadic gem branches became more numerous, and before long, a shining jewel nest appeared before us. In the case of galagons, they also lay gems in their nests, but they don't make them in that form. That's definitely a crystalwing nest. ZZZZZZZZZZZ, alright. We found the nest. I briefly set down number 26 and, along with the mother of the sky, examined the nest. Seeing frozen, mirage-like corpses in the nest indicated that it had been empty for quite some time. How many do you think there are? ZZZZZZZZZZ, from what I see, at least 2. 2. But there's no trace of eggs being laid. ZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZเป็นa young couple. The minimum number is 2. It's a newly formed pair, just meeting each other. After mating, crystalwings have the male build the nest while the female prepares to lay eggs. If eggs are produced, the female cares for them while the male goes out to hunt for food. As I mentioned, there are clear signs of the male reinforcing this nest. However, seeing no signs of either male or female suggests they went out together to hunt for food. It didn't seem like food was that scarce. Now that the nest is built, one of them should stay to guard it, which is unexpected. Maybe because of the galagons, the hunting range has narrowed for them. Galagons and crystalwings vie for the top predator position in the wild. They immediately attack upon seeing each other since they are competitors for food. However, crystalwings are stronger than green galagons but weaker than white galagons, so when they clash, usually the galagons, known for forming packs, emerge victorious. Knowing they are at a disadvantage, crystalwings are cautious even though they are the top predator. The problem is that there are at least 2 galagon packs on this planet. Considering that each galagon occupies twice the territory, it's not easy for crystalwings to find food. Even if they settle down, it's still a problem. If they've gone hunting, we don't know when they'll return. ZZZZZ, that's true. Once crystalwings go out for a hunt, they don't return to the nest for a long time. They roam outside for a week at the shortest, up to 6 months, searching for food. If they were in the egg-laying phase, this period would be significantly shorter, but we can't count on that stroke of luck now. What should we do? Wait. Or try to find another nest? The mother of the sky asked, but I didn't answer immediately. Which option is more advantageous? If Adha hadn't been kidnapped, I might consider waiting for a long period, but in the current situation, that's not possible. I have limited time. But finding another nest isn't easy either. There are over hundreds of peaks in these mountain ranges. Including other suitable habitats for crystalwings, there are easily over thousands of places to search. It's impossible to check all of them one by one. Once the nest is found, there's only one option left. ZZZZZZZZZZZZ, let's wait for 2 days. The mother of the sky nodded, indicating her respect for my opinion. If crystalwings don't come back even after waiting, there's no choice. We'll have to risk it and aim for the galagons, or perhaps catch other winged creatures. With the nest made, the issue of homelessness was solved within less than a day. Chapter 197. Adha stood before the Queen of Pure White, Hemort. She lay on the ground, basking in the warm heat emanating from the depths of the cave. It was clear she felt no threat from Adha. Adha felt a slight annoyance at her complacency. Lie down. Hemort commanded, her words tinged with a hint of irritation. Reluctantly, Adha complied and lay on the ground. Just as Hemort had said, the floor was very warm, enough to make her forget the winter chill outside the cave. Seeing Adha obey quietly, Hemort closed her eyes in satisfaction. Follow my words. She began. Do you know your father, the great Odgrad, the Black Galagon? Yes. Adha replied. Hemort and Odgrad, the mighty Black Galagon, were her parents. On the day Adha was born, a brilliant meteor shower filled the sky, leading Hemort to name her daughter of Meteor Adha, with her exceptional memory, vividly recalled the joy on her mother's face as she looked at her. But now, those memories were irrelevant, as her parents had banished her for being a mutant. Just as Adha was about to ask why she was bringing up the past, she was startled by a sudden wave of intense anger from Hamort. Odgrad deceived us for decades, maybe centuries. Adha couldn't understand. Among her kind, the concept of deception was almost non-existent. They communicated through thoughts, with emotions blending seamlessly into their telepathic exchanges. Deceiving a telepathically sensitive being was nearly impossible. Odgrad possessed a special stone that blocks emotional leakage. A stone. Yes, a special stone that hides the owner's emotions. With it, I and the other Galagons couldn't read Odgrad's mind. Adha started to grasp the situation. During her travels with her elder, she had seen ugly creatures carrying strange metal objects, some of which held great power. These creatures used the metal for various miraculous feats, sometimes to torment her and her elder, and other times to mimic the powers used by her kind. Perhaps Odgrad also had such a peculiar metal object, one that enabled him to hide his emotions. Why did he do that? Adha inquired, curious. Odgrad is old. There should be a new successor, a new Black Galagon. I agree. But, Ort continued. In Odgrad's brood, there is no successor, no black kin. Her words were true. Adha couldn't recall seeing any black kin other than Odgrad. In hindsight, it was strange. In Hamort's brood, there were many white kin. Given how much longer Odgrad's brood had existed, it would make sense for there to be black kin as well, but there were none. For decades, the flow of the stars has changed, and yet no Black Galagon has emerged. Ort explained. Adha, though not very old, understood that what Ort was saying was not normal. She herself had transformed from a light green to a full green within a short time by consuming a variety of prey. In a nest where all the conditions for growth were met, the absence of Black Galagon was unheard of. Odgrad does not want a successor. Ort said. He abandons any Galagon with the potential to grow. I have seen it. Ort continued. Odgrad secretly eliminates his own kin. She didn't need to say more for Adha to understand. The old leader had crushed young sprouts to maintain his position, not just through banishment but by hunting down and killing abandoned kin. But Ort wasn't finished yet. Odgrad knows. She said. That the daughter of the meteor has potential. Potential. I have researched our kin's legends. Ort said. An elder spoke of a need for a savior. Ort pointed her paw at Adha. You, daughter of the meteor, have the qualities. You could be the true savior. This was something Adha had never imagined. Like all apex creatures, the crystal wing possesses unique characteristics that set it apart. It has undergone distinctive evolution to survive in harsh environments and among stronger competitors. One of its most notable features is its sensory organs, especially its eyes. As a creature that flies at high altitudes, the crystal wing has exceptionally sharp vision, capable of spotting small creatures over 10 kilometers away. Unlike the desert-dwelling Terraville, which has an X-ray vision ability, the crystal wing simply has superior eyesight. However, its true strength isn't in its vision. It's like a flying radar. Every time the crystal wing breathes, it emits unique electromagnetic waves from its body. These waves, similar to radar, reflect off the surroundings, allowing the crystal wing to locate other creatures. This extraordinary ability is due to a substance secreted by the crystal wing. Before it reaches full maturity, it instinctively coats its body with this secretion. Over time, the secretion hardens and transforms into a unique metallic substance that generates the electromagnetic waves. These waves are not only useful for hunting prey but also serve as a defense mechanism. They create a semi-permanent stealth effect, making the crystal wing undetectable to other radar equipment. That's why crystal wing secretion is so valuable. Considering the crystal wing's ecological characteristics, hiding under a tree or rock is pointless. Unless you bury yourself deep underground, there's no escaping its detection. The usual strategy is to use signal jamming or hijacking, but signal jamming and hijacking are traits that generate waves to disrupt electronic equipment. Although crystal wings are living creatures, they use electromagnetic waves, making them vulnerable to these traits. The main tactic is to nullify or disturb their wave abilities before launching a surprise attack. I don't have either of these traits currently, but I have something that can substitute for them. Unknown creature fur. This trait, granted by the intelligent weakling perk, nullifies various detection devices, traits, and technologies. With this, I should be able to avoid their detection. Hiding won't be a big issue. The crucial part is how to ambush them. With my thoughts organized, I called the team together. ZZZZZZZZZZZZZZ, we need bait to lure them when they come. Right? They're sensitive and easily scared. ZZZZZZZZZ, so, I was thinking. I looked at number 26. ZZZZZZZZZZZZ, can you adjust your energy so it's not visible? Yes, I can. Upon my request, number 26 manipulated the psychic power flowing through its body. The energy that had been distorting the surrounding air was absorbed entirely into its body. The purple glow that had faintly flowed over its pink body also vanished. Perfect. The being before me was no longer a terrifying sea monster but the popular space survival pet, the bubble amoeba. Is this good? ZZZZZZZZZ, very well done. Thanks. ZZZZZZZZZZZ, when the winged ones come, lure them in. Leave it to me, big baby. Such a reliable creature. There are 2 reasons I chose it as bait. First, apart from myself, number 26 is the best at concealing its power. Its ability to handle psychic power surpasses mine, so pretending to be weak is no issue. A creature with hidden power will look exactly like a harmless bubble amoeba, a pink, innocuous balloon. This should deceive even the wary crystalwing. Second, its body color. A bright pink creature atop a snow-covered peak is sure to catch the eye of the visually sharp crystalwing. I picked it up and placed it near the nest. It wiggled its tendrils, signaling me to trust it. I gently patted it with the back of my hand, conveying my gratitude, and then, leaving the quivering creature behind, I retreated from the nest with Mother Sky and PS-111. ZZZZZZZZZ, how about digging a pit behind that rock? Rather than that, it might be better to ambush them near that cluster of trees. ZZZZZZZZZ, not a bad idea. Let's do that. Let me help. PS-111 and I dug into the ground near the trees surrounding the peak. Before long, we had completed a large pit about 2 meters deep and 3 meters wide. ZZZZZZZZZZ, get in first and wait. To avoid detection. Got it. The creature was a mutant screamer, with half of its body being mechanical. Since it emitted faint electromagnetic waves, the crystal wings would spot it instantly. That's why I planned to hide it at the very bottom. Once I confirmed it was lying at the bottom of the pit, I called Mother of the Sky. ZZZZZZZZZ, are you ready? Yes. She had transformed from her griffin form into a humanoid one. Having embraced the power of the Wendigo, her appearance had slightly changed. While she still had the head of a white eagle and golden fur covering a muscular body, there were new additions. 2 small horns had sprouted from her head, black bone-shaped tattoos adorned her body, and her once bulky muscles had slimmed down, highlighting her feminine curves. If her previous look was that of a fierce warrior, now she resembled a shaman from a primal tribe. With nimble movements, she lay on top of PS-111, who was already lying in the pit. In her current form, she was much smaller than her griffin form, making it easier for her to conceal herself. Perfect. I then lay my body over them, covering them like a blanket. My full length, including my tail, was about 5 meters, making it easy to completely cover the entrance of the pit. This should keep us hidden from their detection. I knew it wasn't a flawless plan, which is why I had set up number 26 as a decoy to divert their attention. Now, all we could do was wait. ZZZZZZZZ, aren't you hungry? I'm fine. I need an energy supply. Requesting small parasites generated from a morph's body. You just ate earlier, and now again. I require a continuous energy supply to withstand the ongoing load. Do you want to die? I'm not that heavy, you know. We passed the time with idle chatter. I think I can handle one of the 2 crystal wings. ZZZZZZZZZZ, using the power of the Wendigo. Yes. But if it's an adult, I won't be able to hold it for long. ZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZ or discussed our battle strategy. A morph's features seem quite similar to my model. ZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZ, maybe those who created you were inspired by me. Have you met my developers? ZZZZZZZZZZZ, well, let's say we've crossed paths. If the developers see a morph they would never just stand by. ZZZZZZZZZZZ, Neither would I. We passed the time discussing matters we hadn't talked about before. None of us were creatures with physical limitations, so being immobilized for a long time wasn't a life-threatening issue. However, the boredom was unbearable. For the first day, we had various conversations, but by the second day, everyone had fallen silent. PS-111 went into sleep mode to conserve energy, and Mother of the Sky also dozed off. Number 26, our decoy, was playing with gem fragments it found in the nest. I had taught it a game of air juggling to keep it entertained, knowing it would get bored without any sleep. At first, it seemed awkward, but once it got the hang of it, it became completely engrossed. Even now, it was tirelessly tossing and catching dozens of gems with a single tentacle. A sea demon playing air juggling, huh? In the game, it used to juggle people instead of gems. Well, it's good that it's having fun. With number 26 happily occupied, I focused back on my task. I had been monitoring continuously since yesterday, waiting for the crystal wings to return. The auxiliary organ under my chin had been tirelessly detecting any changes in the black sky above the peak for 2 days. This brings back memories. In the game, I used to wait for long periods to capture a crystal wing, setting up camp near its nest just as I was doing now. It was less boring back then, though. The fluid crystals produced by crystal wings were extremely valuable, attracting many competitors. For them, keeping the crystal wings alive and harvesting their fluids was more profitable. Their approach was entirely different from mine, as I aimed for their lives. Thanks to them, I was never bored, constantly fighting off others. For me, the more I fought with players, the more genetic essence I gained. Though there were some odd ones too. I recalled a megacorp ranker who, having lost to me, decided that if he couldn't have something, no one could. He brought a spaceship and initiated an orbital bombardment, costing me a unique trait when I was hit and killed. As I reminisced about the past, the designated time was drawing to a close. Just 1 hour left. I looked up at the dark sky. Besides the white snowflakes and black clouds, there was nothing to see. Should I find another way? I had come to capture a crystal wing aiming for its apex predator and spaceflight traits. However, if all I wanted was the wings, there were other ways. While there weren't many winged creatures on this icy planet, there were some. Maybe I should go down, get some wings first, and then come back for the crystal wing. As I was contemplating waking the others, my auxiliary organ detected something. It was a faint sensation, different from the strong winds blowing over the peak, like a gentle breath from someone nearby. It was faint, but I didn't miss it. It was the same feeling I got near the engine room or the central computer of a spaceship. Something you wouldn't expect to feel on this desolate, white peak, devoid of machines or people. It was unmistakably an electromagnetic wave. They're here. The entity we had been waiting for, the crystal wing, was finally returning to its nest. Chapter 198. Are they here? It wasn't long after I sensed the crystal wing that the Sky Mother awoke. Although I didn't see them directly, I sensed them through my auxiliary organs. Zzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzz. They are not visible, but I can feel it. They came sooner than I expected. Zzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzz The one whispering softly beneath me fell silent again. I sent a signal to number 26. ZZZZZZZZ, the flying one has arrived. Yeah. Number 26, which had been playing with the air, extended its tentacles from its body and began to wave them vigorously, attempting to attract attention from a distance. During this, my auxiliary organs picked up on the electromagnetic waves flowing through space. This creature hunted by sensing electromagnetic waves, similar to radar. The detection of these waves indicated that it was getting closer. Fixing my gaze on the sky, I waited. Something started to appear among the dark clouds. Two glowing orbs, faintly visible, looked like UFOs flying through the air. There it is. The crystal wing was close. They were hovering around, not descending to their nest. They're cautious. Considering they are apex predators, this cautious behavior made sense. Competing for food with galagons, they needed this level of vigilance to survive in the harsh natural environment. As the creatures didn't come down, number 26 waved its tentacles even more energetically. Whether it was due to this effort or not, the glowing orbs in the clouds began to approach the peak slowly. Through the swirling snowstorm, their forms became visible. They were giant pterosaurs covered in metallic material. The crystal wing's appearance was reminiscent of the large pterosaur known as Quetzalcoatlus, elongated snouts, unusually long necks for pterosaurs, and wings so large they resembled those of an airplane. Although their bodies are much larger, their wingspans were at least 30 meters. Their wings were even larger than those of their rival, the white Galagon. Aside from their wings, another notable feature was their gleaming exteriors. Not only their wings but their entire bodies appeared to be made of diamonds. This was due to a bodily fluid that hardened into a gemstone-like form. Having coated themselves in this fluid since they were young, their bodies shone like jewels in every corner. The metal-like exteriors reflecting the dark clouds and snow made them look like gigantic mirrors flying through the sky. Quack! Puke! Two crystal wings flapped their wings and approached the nest. Their gaze was fixed on number 26, which was loitering around the nest. Perfect. Focused on number 26, they hadn't noticed us hidden near the trees. I remained still, observing them closely. Among the two crystal wings, one had a distinctive crest on its head. Additionally, its wings were about 1.5 times larger than the others. That one is the male. Male crystal wings are responsible for providing for their families, making them much stronger in combat. The female is being marked by the Sky Mother. The female would be taken on by PS-111 and the Sky Mother, while I, together with number 26, would focus on the male. Over here. Come this way. As the crystal wings approached, number 26 prepared to move. Pink fins, which acted as legs, emerged from under its body. Using these fins, it quickly moved away from the nest. Quack! Queer! The sight seemed to trigger the hunting instincts of the crystal wings, causing them to let out a loud screech. Their voices were so powerful that the echoes reached the Twin Peaks on the other side. After a mighty roar, the creatures dived toward number 26, aiming to catch it atop the nest. The pressure from their wings, spanning dozens of meters, swept across the summit, causing the snow piled around the nest to scatter into the air. They're flapping in anger. Number 26, nearly blown away along with the snow, managed to hold on by anchoring its tentacles to the ground, preventing such a mishap. Safely landing, it quickly scurried towards our hiding spot, moving its fins rapidly. Chasing closely behind was a crystal wing. The leading male opened its mouth wide, clearly preparing to unleash its most powerful weapon. ZZZ, now. Alright. Brushing off the snow, I rose to my feet. As the creature, covered in dark brown fur, emerged from the snow, the crystal wings widened their eyes. From the pit below, PS-111, carrying the Sky Mother, leapt out. Partially crouched on PS-111, the Sky Mother's eyes emitted a blue glow. This was the effect of using one of the Wendigo's unique abilities, the Spirit of Ice. A blue flame shot out from her amber eyes, flying towards the creatures. The male, sensing the psychic power, quickly spread its wings, lifting itself swiftly into the air. But her target was never the male. Her aim was at the one following behind. The female, trailing behind, noticed the incoming attack too late. Puke. The female, struck by the blue flames, froze in mid-air like a puppet with its strings cut. Unable to move, it plummeted to the ground. Quake. ZZZZZZZZZZZ, your opponent is me. I charged at the male, who was trying to help the female. Despite being much smaller in my intelligent weakling mode, my strength wasn't lacking. Quake. As I collided with it, the horns on my head pierced through its wings. I tried to rip the wing apart by shaking my head, but I couldn't. A turquoise beam from its mouth struck my body. Pain nullification activated. Ugh. The crystal wing, capable of manipulating electromagnetic forces due to its biological traits, could unleash a powerful particle beam with this energy. Its power easily surpassed that of a plasma weapon. I can't hold out any longer. My smaller size meant reduced defense, making prolonged exposure dangerous. At that moment, as if reading my mind, number 26 came to my aid. Stop bullying the big baby. Swoosh. Hundreds of purple threads shot out from the small body of number 26, wrapping around the crystal wing. Entangled by the threads of the sea demon, the crystal wing twisted in an unnatural direction. With the particle beam halted, I distanced myself from the crystal wing. ZZZZZ, follow me. But I just punished the bad guy. ZZZZZZZZ, it's not dead yet. Quake. Landing lightly on the ground, I grabbed number 26 and retreated into the forest. Almost simultaneously, the creature let out a howl with its broken neck. In a fleeting moment, The creature's broken neck and torn wings had healed, and it was chasing us closely. The crystal wing's healing speed is incredible. It lacks the hard shell of the ice horror, the variety of minions like the glacier fiend, and the powerful psychic abilities of the Galagon. However, it has all the tools necessary for survival. It has particle beams for hunting enemies, rapid regenerative abilities for healing large and small wounds, and excellent detection capabilities. Additionally, it can fly for long periods without rest. These factors make the crystal wing classified as an apex predator. But I have no intention of losing. In the near distance, the creature's particle beam was smashing trees. The dense forest was slowing down the creature with its large wings. Once I had put some distance between us, I set down number 26. As soon as it touched the ground, it expanded back to its original size. Numerous fins sprouted from its lower body, and hundreds of tentacles bristling with sharp, saw-like edges grew from its upper body. Entering combat mode, countless eyes appeared all over its body. These eyes all turned toward me in unison. Without saying a word, I nodded. We have been through numerous battles together. Even without communicating through wavelengths, we can understand each other's intentions. The eyes that were looking at me curved into crescent shapes. Reading my intent, number 26 charged at the crystal wing. Quake! You bad creature! Get ready for punishment. The hundreds of eyes that had smiled at me now glared menacingly. The sea demon's unique ability, Abyssal Terror, unfolded before the crystal wing. Ku-aa. The creature, which had been incinerating the forest with its particle beam, halted its attack. The eyes of the crystal wing, which had been glaring at number 26, began to tremble. Although the male crystal wing has a stronger resistance to psychic powers than the female, it is not strong enough to completely overcome the power of the sea demon. However, things in this world never go that smoothly. The creature, trembling as it looked at number 26, turned its head to look behind it. There, the Sky Mother and PS-111 were fighting against the female. Quake. Quake. Perhaps it was the desire to protect its loved one. The creature let out a powerful roar and began preparing to fire its particle beam again. You can't. Quake. Before it could shoot the particle beam, number 26 launched a demon crash by gathering wood fragments and hurling them at the creature. Annoyed, the creature shook its head. Meanwhile, the saw-like tentacles of number 26 flew toward the crystal wing, attempting to entangle it. However, the creature had already regained its composure. The particle beam incinerated the tentacles and the surrounding trees. Despite the pain of losing its tentacles, number 26 immediately counterattacked with its binding ability. The tips of the crystal wing's wings crumpled like paper, but it was equally tenacious. It sacrificed its wings to dive in and pecked at number 26 with its beak. As these apex predators fought fiercely, I examined the area where the turquoise beam had struck me. The fur had long since evaporated, and the carapace had fallen off entirely. I need a body strong enough to overwhelm it. The intelligent weakling mode has served me well so far. But now, it was time to return to the quasi-saint form of the amorph and activate the symbol of hunt. Initially, I had planned to incapacitate the enemy with number 26's Abyssal Terror before attacking, but things had deviated slightly from my expectations. I had no choice but to proceed as is. As I deactivated the intelligent weakling mode, I activated the symbol of hunt. My body, which had been only 5 meters tall, began to grow rapidly. As my body expanded at an astonishing speed, the internal skeletal structure also changed. The centaur-like form transformed into a shape resembling a snake, and the 4 combat arms, which had served as legs, returned to their original function. The countless hairs that covered my body fell away, revealing the carapace and synthetic scales underneath. The human-faced spiders hidden within the fur, as well as the corrosive tentacles within the swirling membranes, also became visible. With 6 mighty horns, an elongated head reminiscent of a large theropod dinosaur, a massive body resembling a mythical serpent, and 6 arms covered in a tough carapace, complete with a heavy pincer at the end of my tail. Although it had only been a few days since my transformation, it felt like I was returning after a long absence. But my body was not yet in a state to rest. To align with the transformation mode of the perfect organism, the symbol of hunt, I had to reconfigure my body. My head carapace, which was already large, became even more massive in this state. The thick carapace covered my eyes, and my split lower jaws became even more extreme. The 4 auxiliary organs located beneath my well-developed jaws were now encased in bone carapace, just like my eyes. The carapace covering the auxiliary organs was thin and sharp like blades. These organs, which had previously only functioned as sensory tools, had now become weapons capable of slicing through flesh. The human-faced spider that had been on my back had moved to my head. 2 additional arms equipped with bio-scythes had sprouted, and the blunt claws attached to my lower body and tail had extended like the legs of a centipede or spider. Optimized for hunting and slaughter, every part of my body now looked menacing. Among these familiar changes, there was one new aspect. What is this? Thanks to the effects of the abyssal hue, the monster's tentacles had become even more impressive. Previously, the bundle of tentacles had covered only the back of my head and the entire neck area. Now, they extended down to my lower jaw. I looked as though I had a beard and hair made of tentacles. It was almost like the depiction of an evil god from an out-of-print horror anthology. I'll worry about the appearance later. Having completed all my evolutions, I slowly stood up. The treetops, which had been towering high above my head just moments ago, were now right in front of me. Quick! Big Baby is back. The crystal wing was astonished to see me emerging, pushing through the trees. Your essence will be mine. With a powerful roar, I declared my intent to the enemy before me, or rather, to my prey. Chapter 199. Me. Savior. Impossible. Understand. It was hard for Adha to believe the facts that Hem-Ort conveyed. Me. Small body. Weak. Savior. Impossible. Since birth, she has had a small and frail body. It was only by good fortune and meeting kind people that she had grown at all, but her body remained diminutive. While her strength might be debatable, her body was so small it was almost laughable, even smaller than a hatchling's. For someone like her to be the savior, it was unthinkable. You. Small, true. But. First consort. Taught. Savior. Star power. Connection. First consort. Just as Hem-Ort was the third consort, there had been females bonded with the Black Galagon before her. The first among them was an ancient Galagon of the 5th rank. TL/N it is talking about a red Galagon. Where is the first consort? Dead. Odgrad. Beard. Truth. So. Killed. Hearing this, Adha was taken aback. Even though the first consort's rank had fallen considerably due to aging, she was the oldest among their kin. In terms of respect, she was honored nearly as much as the great Odgrad. Yet, she had been killed. It was hard to believe Hem-Ort wasn't lying. Adha scrutinized the white female with her heightened senses. Her psychic powers reached out and touched Hem-Ort's body. Although Hem-Ort was aware that her daughter was watching her, she remained still. After a series of assessments, Adha confirmed that at least Hem-Ort truly believed what she was saying. The death of the first consort was also a sorrowful event for Adha. She had been the only one in the group who treated Adha well. Even more so than Hem-Ort, Adha's biological mother. However, what the first consort had said and whether she was truly a special being were separate matters. Hem-Ort insisted that Adha possessed the power of the stars, but it didn't resonate with her. If she had such power, she wouldn't have been captured here in the first place. Daughter of the meteor. Savior. Evidence. There is more. Hem-Ort pointed with her forepaw at Adha's green scales. Growth. Faster than kin. I. Hunt. Correctly. Food. Much. Predation. Adha tried to refute, but Hem-Ort shook her head. Not wrong. But. Too. Fast. Can. Growth. Strength. Food. Much. Much. Needed. Though Adha was too young and inexperienced to know, Hem-Ort understood. When she found the traces of her daughter, who had left this world and returned, she realized that the daughter of the meteor had grown at an abnormal pace. Among the kin born with her, many had their scale colors change from pale to green. They were all larger and stronger than she was. However, Hem-Ort felt it. The day when this small daughter would shed her green scales for the same pure white ones that adorned her own body was not far off. The daughter of the meteor had grown so much without any of the benefits provided by the nest that bore the Galagon's power. What does it mean that an exiled being grew faster than those who received all the benefits? The answer was simple. Before the first consort died, she said that the savior, though seemingly insignificant, had enormous potential. If the right conditions to unlock that potential were met, the daughter of the meteor could blossom into the legendary being of the tales. Daughter of the meteor. Needs special food. Special food. The flesh of kings. is needed. Follow me. Once she had sufficiently shaken herself, Ort stood up. As she exited the cave, Adha quickly followed her outside. Since the day Ort brought back the daughter of the meteor, she has relentlessly gone on hunts. It was to find food for the daughter of the meteor. And today, during the day, she succeeded in hunting a monster that existed far away. Despite not being fully grown, the monster was enormous. It was so large that she couldn't carry it alone and needed the help of her kin to move it. What is that? Adha, who had entered the forest with her, sent a telepathic wave. In front of them lay the massive carcass of a beast. The creature was torn into several pieces, each of which was larger than her white-scaled kin. Seeing Adha tilting her head in confusion in front of the beast's corpse, Ort proudly explained. King of Serpents. Immature. Specimen. Ort. Hunted. Daughter of the meteor. Growth. Catalyst. She expected her daughter to be surprised, but Adha's reaction was completely unexpected. I tasted it before. It was delicious. Ort was bewildered. Ignoring her mother's reaction, Adha licked her lips while looking at the carcass of the ice horror. Seeing my transformed state, the crystal wing hesitated. A creature that was once less than half its size had now appeared much larger, causing it to be understandably bewildered. After a single roar, I charged at it. Thanks to the stealth maneuver effect, my footsteps made almost no sound. The only noise was from the trees shattering as my body crashed through them. Then, I collided with the crystal wing. Quark. Unable to avoid properly due to its confusion, it screamed. Even when I was smaller, my horns had torn its wings. Colliding with a body larger than its wingspan left it in no better condition. Its wing, now shredded from my charge, left it open-mouthed. Just before it could fire its particle beam, number 26's support arrived. Queuk. A tree, uprooted entirely, flew into its mouth, causing it to choke. While it gagged, the parasitic tentacles on my back sprang forth, wrapping around its wings. Like a snake hunting a bird, the tentacles tightened swiftly. The broad wings tore apart, and fragments of bone splintered outward. To finish it off, I opened my lower jaw wide. My jaw split into two, ready to swallow its head whole, but it retaliated. Having chewed and swallowed the tree in its mouth, it fired the particle beam. The immense heat scorched my upper palate, forcing me to close my mouth quickly. While my exterior was tougher than a ship's hull, the inside of my body wasn't as durable. Escaping this crisis, it aimed its particle beam at the tentacle-bound wings. Kuaark. Incredibly, it fired at its own wings to tear them apart. Destroying its wings allowed it to escape the tentacles and retreat rapidly. Regenerative ability. Huh. I thought it had just reached adulthood, but it's quite formidable. It clearly understood its own powers well. As it retreated, new wings grew swiftly from its wounds. With the freshly regenerated wings fully spread, it took off into the air. It must have realized its disadvantage in close combat. Switching its strategy to aerial bombardment, where the crystal wing excelled. But you're not the only one good at bombardment. I had already anticipated this move. I was prepared for a bombardment battle too. As it hovered above the forest, preparing to fire its particle beam, my tentacles extending from my neck and jaw moved. The black gloss of my carapace turned purple. The latent energy in my body converted into psychic power, concentrating at the tips of the tentacles. The power of the Galagon, psychic breath. This was it in its pure form, without the abyssal hue enhancement. At the moment the male crystal wing fired its particle beam, the tentacles attached to my jaw and neck unleashed their force. On a snow-covered peak shrouded in dark clouds, teal and purple lights clashed violently. The booming sound, like thunder in a storm, reverberated, causing the entire mountain summit to tremble. Even before the echo of the crash died down, the sound of an avalanche could be heard from below the peak. The collision between the creature and me was shaking the entire mountain. Then number 26 joined our struggle. Trees, rocks, ice, and soil all floated into the air, spinning like a massive drill. It was the same technique that had previously inflicted a critical wound on the ice horror. Seeing this, the crystal wing quickly stopped its beam and dodged. My psychic breath grazed its crest. As the clash between us paused, number 26's psychic drill shot towards the creature. The mass of intangible energy tore through the air, severing one of its wings. Kwa. The term severed is no metaphor. The creature, split in half in an instant, plummeted to the ground. Meanwhile, I activated the colors of the abyss. The tentacles that had glowed a vivid purple now donned a myriad of colors. Green, purple, and other indescribable hues swirled around the tentacles. With the colors ready, I activated the Watcher of Terror. Energy streamed from my tentacles and coalesced in the air. The liquid-like energy bubbled incessantly, as if it were boiling. The amorphous mass, writhing as if it had a mind of its own, transformed into a gigantic bubble. It's bigger than I thought. The ominously shimmering bubble appeared to be about 5 meters in diameter. Whether it was enhanced by the hunting icon effect or because my body had returned to its original state, I couldn't be sure at that moment. Soon, the massive bubble began moving toward its target. The target was the creature's body. The bubble, which inflicted nightmarish pain on all living beings, flew through the air. Quake! Quake! Seeing the approaching Watcher of Terror, the crystal wing let out a cry mixed with fear. Its primal instincts must have recognized the extreme danger of the bubble. Instead of counterattacking, it tried to dodge the bubble. Had it fired a particle beam from that spot, the bubble would have burst and engulfed it. I anticipated that. The next move is. This attack was merely a feint. As I prepared to unleash my next move, something astonishing happened. The massive bubble shattered into dozens of smaller ones, which flew at the creature at much greater speed. Number 26. Each of these bubbles was connected by a thin purple thread. The source of these threads was number 26, standing behind me. Thanks to its assistance, the swiftly flying bubbles exploded in front of the crystal wing's chest. As the bubbles burst, their contents splattered over its head. The colors spread like ink in water. As soon as they touched, the creature froze in place. The excruciating pain rendered it unable to think. With the creature immobilized, this was my chance. I deactivated the colors of the abyss and fired a second psychic breath. The purple beam sliced through the falling snow and pierced the creature's heart. In excruciating pain and now heartless, the crystal wing staggered before collapsing onto the snow. It let out a long, regretful sigh and moved no more. The hunt had gone much more smoothly than expected, but the most important part was what had just happened. Something entirely unexpected had occurred. I didn't expect it to end so easily. I had planned to subdue it using a distraction strategy with the colors of the abyss. However, thanks to number 26 revealing a new power, I didn't need to employ my planned move. I knew number 26 could handle psychic power well, but I hadn't anticipated it could intervene in my psychic abilities. It seems like it can only interfere with techniques that use the colors of the abyss. Otherwise, it would have assisted from the moment I fired the first psychic breath. Or maybe it's related to the form of the attack. It could be that concentrated energy beams like the psychic breath are hard to control, but slower, smaller attacks like the bubbles are within its capability. Whatever the case, it's a remarkable achievement. Even if it couldn't intervene in all my psychic attacks, it didn't matter. If it could control the enhanced Watcher of Terror alone, I could apply it in far more diverse ways. I unconsciously turned to it facing me. It playfully waved one of its tentacles. I thought it would work. Confidence overflowed in its words. The only response I could give was, "Zzzzzzzzzzz, well done." Yeah. While this crystal wing strategy was primarily to enhance my maneuverability, I unexpectedly gained a substantial reward. I wanted to praise it right away, but there were still enemies left. I decided to discuss the celebration of number 26's accomplishment after we finished off the female. Zzzzzzzzz, shall we go then? Yeah. Let's help out the middle ones and their friends. I carried number 26 and rushed towards the fights happening on the peak. Approximately 5 minutes after the male was defeated, 2 pairs of splendid jewel wings fell side by side on the unnamed peak. After 2 days of waiting, I successfully hunted down 2 crystal wings. Chapter 200. I got 4 apexes with this. Thanks to combining forces with the kids, we easily took down even the female crystal wing. The speed was much faster than when playing the game itself. Back then, I moved alone. If I had faced 2 crystal wings alone, it wouldn't have been easy. That's it. Other player competitors aiming for them should also be cautious. It would have taken weeks to catch both. But today, the situation was good. I had helpers, and there were no other competitors. Meeting them in 2 days was also lucky. And confirming number 26's potential was an achievement. As expected, it could only adjust attacks made up of projectile forms. Abyssal Hue, Watcher of Terror, a trait that launches fungal masses melting objects, acid fungal pods. Number 26 could easily control these 2 traits. like bursting flying spheres midway to create a spreading explosion or adjusting their flight speed, etc. However, the basic psychic breath fired in a linear form couldn't be adjusted. A similar attack style, Divine Spectre, would probably be equally uncontrollable. I haven't experimented with the enhanced psychic breath yet. In this situation, I intentionally didn't use it, as I would need to leave corpses. Given its attack method similar to the Watcher of Terror, I think it would be feasible. Apart from number 26, Mother of the Sky and PS 111 fought as well as expected. Mother of the Sky, who unlocked the Wendigo transformation ability, could use some of Wendigo's traits. One of them is the ability Spirit of Ice, which, like Wendigo's legacy that drove humans insane, space survival's Wendigo can also interfere with other creatures' minds. Creatures affected by Spirit of Ice lose reason and become fixated solely on devouring other creatures. Techniques requiring concentration or traits activated consciously by the owner cannot be used. For example, if I were affected by Spirit of Ice, I would become a cannibalistic monster fixated only on genetic essence, with all abilities sealed. It is a very powerful personal debuff ability, but with equally great limitations. Depending on the opponent, its duration can fluctuate wildly. Moreover, while Spirit of Ice is active, the user cannot use other techniques or abilities, making it disadvantageous if physical capabilities are weaker than the opponent's. Simply put, it can be described as an ability that forcibly drags opponents into melee combat. Thanks to this effect, the female Crystal Wing couldn't mount a proper counterattack and lost without even trying. It would pair well with the High Priest's Golden Spear. Today, I left my equipment all in the nest, but it might be better to bring it along for the next hunt. I thought I'd gotten stronger, but you're amazing. I never knew the Sea Demon had such abilities. Am I amazing? Amazing. Your psychic power mastery has increased by 42% compared to before. Congratulations. I don't know what that means, but thanks. The creatures were pleased before the Crystal Wing carcasses. I approached them with the male's body in tow. ZZZZ, well done. Always interesting changes to see. Requesting samples for genetic analysis. ZZZ, no. Can I eat some of the female's heart and organs? ZZZZZZZ, because of the unlock conditions. No, I needed to advance Griffin's divine transformation stage. Listening and seeing, memories returned. Just like Emif's growth, there are stages to Wolf's divine transformation. According to the setting, the higher the divine transformation stage, the closer they are to the gods of wolves. The Griffin is a hybrid creature combining an eagle and a lion. Specialized for land combat, it also has a brief flight ability. Therefore, powerful flight creatures are needed to raise the divine transformation stage. Her growth is advantageous for my survival. I nodded. ZZ, okay. Thank you. Where should we start eating then? While Mother of the Sky was dismantling, I decided to start with the male's carcass. Its head was so huge that measuring it in meters seemed faster. I started by tearing off the beak and crest attached to its head. Then, I put the crest, still stuck with tendons and skin tissue, into my mouth. Its jaws, which split into two branches, chewed diligently on the crest. The unique texture, seemingly located somewhere between bone and cartilage, pleasantly filled my mouth with each chew. The slimy juices that flowed out with every bite made me unexpectedly satisfied. It's like a stewed gizzard. The broth of the gizzard bones had permeated well into the cartilage. It felt similar to dipping it in tangy soy sauce, though a more accurate comparison would emphasize its rich taste and flavor. The intense spiciness that impressed me with the ice horror gave way to a more earthy sensation. After quickly finishing the crest, I also chewed on the beak. Perhaps the earlier meal was too strong in flavor. There wasn't anything particularly distinctive about the taste of the beak. The texture gives a refreshing feeling, though. Chewing the beak felt crisp, like chewing on well-cooked cucumber. I tore off the entire head, chewing through the beak. After chewing up all the beak and swallowing it down my throat, I immediately started eating the male's head, which made my tongue roll around. Good. When I saw the textures of the crest and beak, I expected them to be quite chewy, but they weren't. This feels like boiled pork. Unlike the strong taste and flavor of the crest, the overall head was mild yet had a smooth sensation. It would have been much better to eat them together without separating them. But the tongue is the highlight. I've heard that the taste of a pig's or cow's tongue is unique. Since I haven't tried it myself, the taste of the Crystal Wing's tongue was quite distinctive. Its moderately chewy and oily taste was truly an appetizing flavor. Having eaten through the entire head, I waited for the predation effect to take place. Even after waiting, the semi-transparent text box showed no response. Could it be that I missed it when the effect appeared? I opened the text box to check, but everything remained the same. No way. I thought I was lucky, but it turned out otherwise. The goddess of luck once again abandoned me at a crucial moment. The joy I felt from a delicious meal quickly turned into despair. I turned my gaze to the female's carcass. Now, I only have one chance left. The trait I was aiming for the most was the spaceflight trait. Next in line were abilities to handle stealth and detection waves, or perhaps the ability of rapid regeneration. However, among its other traits were some duds, like robust vitality or enhanced vision. I didn't consider this. Even though it was smooth sailing fighting against them, unforeseen difficulties awaited me. At that moment, Mother of the Sky approached me holding something covered in blood. What did you find? Why? ZZZZZZZZZZ, another failure this time too. What? She widened her eyes upon hearing that I hadn't acquired the trait. Shouldn't you try eating the entire carcass? ZZZZZZZZZZZZZ, that's unrelated to it. Still, since you failed once, the predation effect will surely kick in the second time. When I heard that, I recalled the gambler's fallacy, but I didn't bother pointing it out. Perhaps she meant it as words of comfort for me. Sigh. I guess there's nothing I can do about what hasn't appeared. I've done everything I could. There's no point in being disappointed here, nothing will change. It would be more efficient to prepare for what comes after, anticipating the possibility of failure. If I can't get it this time, let's prepare for other abilities. Targeting shark bear's enhanced endocrine glands wouldn't be a bad idea either. I tore off the head of the crystal-wing female. Without separating and eating the beak, I chewed through it whole. Just like with the male, it still tasted good, but the tension was greater this time. The hard beak cracked under my strong jaws, breaking through the skull that encased the brain. Its contents swiftly passed down my throat into my stomach. Please. Now, all that remained was the part connected to the male's neck. I swallowed it without chewing. The moment I completely digested the male's head, predation effect activated. Successfully acquired spaceflight gene essence. Extracted the spaceflight feature from the biological traits of crystalwing. Would you like to apply spaceflight? GRRR. Great. As soon as the text box appeared before my eyes, I roared with excitement. Holding my arms up, I startled number 26, who was beside me. Why are you acting like that, big baby? Are you hurt? Where? It's not because I'm hurt, but because I'm happy. Is it that delicious? Wouldn't everything taste delicious to you right now? Mother of the Sky's laughter tinged with sarcasm echoed in my mind, but I had no room to care about such things right now. Why does this make people so difficult? Accept. Seeing the trait I had longed for, I accepted its application. Spaceflight trait applied. Can be fused with existing aerial membrane. Fusion of spaceflight and aerial membrane traits. Evolving into enhanced wings of the monstrosity. Enhanced wings of the monstrosity inherits the spaceflight trait, reinforced. Note, countless prey await you in space. Born in the cargo hold of a spaceship, I walked on alloy plates for the first time. I swam with fins beneath the deep sea of Kult's sacred planet. Land, sea, and sky. On this frozen star, I gained new strength. The power to traverse the dark, infinite world filled with darkness. Ugh. Is everyone okay? We're fine. Captain. Are you okay? Damn it. Report to the administrator. Major damage to the cannon. Damage also on the outer wall of the ship. Fortunately, the engine section has minor damage. Casualties. 5 missing among the fighter pilots, 7 among the gunners. Kult's captain, relieved that the engine damage was minimal, immediately regained his composure. This cursed planet is just like that. It had already been 5 days since the disappearance of the young priest Jason, whom they served. And now, the recent attack. With so many complex issues at hand, the captain felt his head might explode. While they had recently faced a major failure, having a highly regarded talent sober up and then disappear on a suspicious planet not even registered on the routes was unprecedented in the Empire. Normally, they would have continued waiting for contact from the priest, but this time, that wasn't an option. This was due to the entity that had allowed them to establish a camp issuing a prohibition. The determined Black Galagon didn't wait long before driving them out when Jason didn't return after several days. He claimed he had work to do and had no time to deal with trivial matters. While others might have different thoughts, the captain personally thanked the Black Galagon. As the days passed, the attitude of the Galagons noticeably changed. If they had stayed even one more day, they would surely have become prey for the hungry Galagons. Leaving the nest was fine, but the real problem arose afterwards. As they prepared to leave aboard the ship left outside the nest, they were attacked by some creature. Just answer me this. Do you think the Galagons will leave us alone? Considering the cowardly nature of those creatures, now that they've gotten what they wanted, they won't target us. Even without stating it directly, it was clear that what they wanted were the 12 missing crew members. Why did it have to be the Garan Minus who? Garan Minus, a giant dragon with the meaning of shining wings, is an extremely rare creature. Unless you're a specialized monster hunting Templar or a cult smuggler, it's not easy to encounter one in a lifetime. When two creatures with such a name crashed into the ship just as it was taking off, the captain thought he must be dreaming. He came to his senses when the ship's outer walls were breached and the crew sacrificed. Thanks to the efforts of the 12 Templars who remained on board, they barely managed to drive away the Garan Minus. Captain, as much as it may seem unnecessary, we need to inform the council as soon as possible. I understand. The Templar urging for the protection of the crew annoyed the captain, but he managed to respond calmly. If it weren't for that Templar, everyone on this ship would have been a meal for those violent dragons. How long will it take to repair the engines? We won't know until we start, but it seems like it will take quite some time. We'll spare no support, so repair the engines quickly. Close off the area near the outer walls and relocate the important materials to another section. Understood. A stroke of luck was that the engines weren't damaged. This planet is a remote place not even recorded on the routes. If they were to be stranded, it would be difficult to rely on rescue teams. They'll probably all die before the rescue team even arrives. Surviving even one day on this planet, where Galagons, Garan Minus, and all sorts of monsters lurk, is difficult. And that's not all. The climate is also horrific. Without reinforced suits, one wouldn't last more than a few minutes. We'll take care of external monitoring. Please repair as quickly as possible. We ask for your cooperation. All the Templars wear a special reinforced suit called Galagon scale armors. Thanks to these ivory-colored reinforced suits, they can endure even the harsh cold. If it were the captain or ordinary cult crew members going out, they would likely freeze to death. May Providence please let nothing happen. The captain prayed silently as he watched the crew rushing around the situation room. Chapter 201. In the world of space survival, the ability to travel through space is extremely important. This is only natural, given that the game is set in space. However, the point at which space travel becomes feasible varies by species. Space pirates like the Space Dog and Megacorp captains can travel through space very early on. These factions are recommended to engage in smuggling or recruit mercenaries using their ships. On the other hand, some species are specialized for space activities but are delayed in their space travel due to various restrictions. For instance, the metallic gremlins can theoretically travel through space from birth but are limited in their means to leave their atmosphere. Outspacers can go into space right from the start, but without any defense mechanisms, it's largely pointless. For species like the metallic gremlins and outspacers, it's easier to progress if they establish a strong foundation on their starting planet before venturing into space. The Amorph falls into the latter category. While they can survive in space without much trouble, their lack of spacefaring capability makes early space travel difficult. To travel to other planets, they must stow away on the ships of players or NPCs. Once they gradually develop and gain space travel capabilities, their gameplay style changes significantly, shifting from moving within a planet or continent to exploring the entire universe. Space travel includes faster-than-light, FTL, movement. However, this isn't something that can be used arbitrarily. FTL travel consumes an enormous amount of energy and requires as much preparation as stowing away on another ship. If used recklessly, you could run out of energy and starve to death mid-journey. Before setting off, you must eat as much as possible and ensure there are resources for resupply during the journey. Another drawback is that FTL travel cannot be used during combat due to a long charge time, which makes you vulnerable to enemy fire. In the game, these risks required cautious use, but in this world, it's different. I have another interstellar navigation ability, Horizon of Nightmares. This unique trait allows me to merge with a spaceship, transforming it into a sort of bioship. Each ability has significant limitations, but together, they complement each other. Horizon of Nightmares and Enhanced Wings of the Beast each have distinct advantages and disadvantages. Horizon of Nightmares isn't very versatile but can store much more energy, making it suitable for long-distance travel between star systems. However, it can only dominate one spaceship every 7 days. Conversely, Enhanced Wings of the Beast are effective for short-range travel between planets or within planetary systems. Due to the need to continually find food, crossing multiple star systems with this trait is challenging. In essence, how you use these traits can compensate for each other's weaknesses. Use the wings for planetary or system internal travel, and Horizon of Nightmares for long-distance travel by taking over a ship. There are likely other uses, but I'll figure those out as I go along. I looked down at the arms enhanced with the Enhanced Wings of the Beast trait. This was the first trait I acquired after arriving in this world. Initially, they were similar to beetle wings, folding protectively around my body and unfolding when needed. However, the new wings are quite different. The topmost pair of my 6 combat arms has transformed into wings. Typically, my combat arms are all the same length and shape, changing only during special transformation modes. But now, the winged arms are much longer and larger than the others, almost 2 to 3 times as long. When fully extended, the fingertips touch the ground even without bending my torso. The arms' exoskeletons have small, membrane-covered holes lined up in a row, used to expel propulsion substances necessary for FTL travel and space flight. All but one of the 4 fingers on each hand have become long and sturdy, with a broad membrane growing between them, resembling a bat's wings. The outside of the membrane is covered in scales, giving it a rough, tough feel, while the inner side is lined with fine, soft fur. The outer surface of the wings is fairly hard, resistant to energy-based weapons, and can even block a plasma cannon blast once, making them useful for emergency defense. Frequent hits will tear them, so it's not the best choice, though. The membranes are almost as large as my body when fully spread out, but folded, they drape down like a massive cloak. A morph cloaked in wings. When I evolve into a full-grown form, I'll look quite impressive, resembling a 3-headed dragon from classic Japanese monster movies. The Saint Stage. With the ability to travel freely through space, I'll be able to meet my evolution conditions more quickly. With this excellent means of transport, the entire planet becomes my hunting ground. Though there's still a long way to go before reaching my mature form, I can now achieve it faster than before. Do you like it that much? As I admired my wings, Mother of the Sky approached me. After the representation of the hunt effect ended, everyone else had temporarily backed off, fearing I might attack. Behind her were number 26 and PS 111. ZZZZZZZZZZZ, sorry for causing you worry. What's to worry about? I already knew. Big baby, are you full now? ZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZ, sorry for eating so much by myself. Babies get hungry quickly, so it's okay. When I came to my senses after the side effects of the symbol of hunt ended, the only remaining food in front of me was half of a female crystal wing's body. The male's corpse was completely devoured. Preliminary simulation results of the energy consumption for the enhanced form suggest that sufficient energy has not yet been supplied. Now that I've regained my sanity, it's fine. TL/and well, there is a slight confusion here actually on how a morph talks with PS 111. I think he uses the mimic organ to talk to it. I'll once again recheck in all the rows as in the starting the MC talks to PS 111 using mimic only and there is no other description saying that they can communicate using thoughts. Nevertheless, I will check. I've heard that a morph can remove its weaknesses through genetic modification. I recommend consuming other organic matter to eliminate those weaknesses. No need to say it, that was my plan. Now that I've acquired the desired flight ability, my next target will be the shark bear to gain a new trait. ZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZ. Once we're done eating, let's go find new prey. Alright. Understood. Number 26 and PS 111, who were engrossed in eating crystalwing meat, responded enthusiastically. Oh, by the way, I have something to show you. Instead of replying, Mother of the Sky showed me a small metal fragment. It was an ivory-colored metal, partially melted, moon silver. ZZZZZZZZZZZ, moon silver. Where did you find this? I found it in the digestive tract of the female. While I was consuming the male's head to gain its trait, she had been examining the female. To enhance her deification stage, she needed to consume the heart and organs. She must have discovered the moon silver fragment during this process. But why would a crystal wing have moon silver? I examined the moon silver fragment closely. ZZZZZZZZZZZZ, it's not in its mineral state. Right? It's a refined moon silver alloy. Hearing that, I had a suspicion. She seemed to have the same thought and nodded silently. Moon silver is a mineral primarily used by cultists. Its properties amplify psychic power effects, so moon silver alloy is widely used in weapons, power suits, and even ships. There's only one possible explanation. Jason. It's undoubtedly a remnant of the spaceship Jason and his subordinates arrived in. Judging by the extent of the metals melting, it seems it was digested quite some time ago. At least over a day ago. ZZZZZZZZZZZZZ. Did you find anything else? I didn't find any other traces. I would have examined the male's body further if it hadn't been completely consumed by me. A spaceship, huh? When I interrogated Jason, who had become an Inmyinsu, he mentioned bringing several subordinates. These subordinates had set up camp in the Black Galagon's nest. This wouldn't have been possible under normal circumstances, but it was a miracle made possible because the Black Galagon had a close relationship with his fellow player. He said they would never leave until he returned. Judging from the current situation, it seems likely that his subordinates tried to leave the planet and met with misfortune. The Crystal Wings wouldn't have entered the Black Galagon's territory to attack the cultists otherwise. Or is it an entirely different force? It's also possible that pirates composed of cultists have set foot here, similar to Muriel's cartel. No need to overthink it. If necessary, I can find out directly. With my thoughts organized, I looked at the others. Number 26 and PS 111 had already finished their brief meal. ZZZZZZZZZZZZZ. Did you eat well? Yes. Quite satisfactorily, though more energy is needed. ZZZZZZZZZZZ. Is that so? Perfect. Having eaten and acquired winged arms, it's the perfect time to hunt while flying. All repairs are complete. Phew, thank goodness. The captain, who had been anxious while the ship was being repaired, finally breathed a sigh of relief. This dreadful planet was crawling with terrifying monsters. What the hell? 6 attacks in less than a day. The spot where the cult cruiser crash landed was near the middle of a massive mountain. It was quite a distance from the Galagon nests, but that didn't mean it was safe. Being away from the Galagon nests meant that many other wild creatures lived in the area. While they expected some attacks, they never imagined being attacked this frequently. If it weren't for the temple guardians, specialists in monster hunting, the ship's crew would have become food for the beasts long ago. At least the Garan Minus haven't returned. Garan Minus have special outer shells that make them undetectable by scanners. Unless seen with the naked eye or detected using specific psychic power techniques, it's nearly impossible to avoid their attacks. Initially, the crew's attempts to leave the planet were thwarted because of those damn Garan Minus. The Temple Guardians kept a vigilant watch for fear of another Garan Minus attack, but fortunately, no such incident occurred. Providence is on our side. Everyone, prepare for takeoff. Yes, sir. The crew busily responded to the captain's orders. The engines, which had been shut down, roared to life, and warmth spread through the cold hull that had been chilled by the outside air. The cultists in the command room synchronized their psychic power with the cruiser, which had just awakened. Information stored at the time of the crash was transmitted into the synchronized minds of the cultists. Important data was projected as a translucent image made of energy in the middle of the command room. Engine activation at 70%. Rising steadily to 100%. Energy levels at 67%. Stable. Damage control and containment complete. Ready for takeoff. Good. Once we're off the planet, prepare the engines for a jump. Understood. Observers, report immediately if you detect any Galagons or other threats. Yes, sir. With all preparations complete, the ship slowly began to lift off. The ivory-colored, elongated rhomboid cruiser wobbled slightly at first but soon ascended smoothly into the sky. Please, let there be no threats. Biological signals rapidly approaching. It's a Galagon. Damn it. The cultist in charge of external monitoring urgently reported. Simultaneously, a tactical map, more sophisticated than those produced by Megacorp or the Star Union, was projected in the command room. A triangular marker was approaching the rhomboid shape representing the cruiser in the center of the map. Can you identify the Galagon's color? Judging by its size, it's estimated to be green. At its current trajectory, it will collide with us in 5 minutes. TSK, switch to evasive maneuvers but maintain current speed as much as possible. Do not engage, just get away quickly. Understood. Given the speed at which it was approaching, it was clear the Galagon wasn't coming with friendly intentions. For some reason, it had targeted the cruiser. As the crew tensed at the sudden appearance of the enemy, the complexion of the crew member in charge of monitoring and scanning turned pale. Emergency report. Another unidentified target is approaching. What? Judging by its size, it's at least white class. Its speed is incredible. Estimated collision in 1 minute. The unexpected bad news threw everyone in the command room into confusion. The captain, barely maintaining his composure, urgently issued orders. Prepare the FTL engines. Observer, share the external camera feed. There isn't enough time to get the engines ready. Damn it. Do whatever it takes. As the situation grew increasingly tense, the video feed from the external camera was displayed in the middle of the command room. What the? The captain was horrified by what he saw on the camera. It was a black meteor soaring through the dark sky. Known as a harbinger of great calamities to the Empire, it appeared whenever a massive disaster struck. A black demon with gigantic wings was approaching them. What? What is that? As everyone froze in fear at the sight of the ominous entity, someone's bewildered voice echoed through the command room. The captain's gaze turned to the reinforced glass at the front of the command room. Among the black clouds and the storm of snow and hail, something was there. A dark silhouette illuminated by flashes of lightning. The terrifying entity captured on camera opened its massive jaws wide and hurtled toward them. Everyone, brace for impact. Just as the captain screamed at the top of his lungs, the cruiser shook violently. Chapter 202. In mythology, the sky is an object of fascination. The vast heavens often take on the divine role of father or mother, closely tied to the creation myths. Even without divine attributes, the sky was seen as the abode of gods or as a place where souls find salvation, sometimes as heaven, and other times as the realm of beings beyond humanity. Even with the end of the age of ignorance and the dawn of reason and technology, the sky remains alluring. This holds true in space survival as well. Given that the game is set in the vast universe, the sky inevitably becomes a target for challenge and conquest. But caution is advised, who knows what might lurk within the unknown. Expanse of the sky. Snow, rain, hail, and storms, my wings swim through the symphony of nature. Lightning flashes, followed by thunder. With each strike of lightning, my shadow flickers against the ashen clouds. My shoulders tense, and the muscles covered in scales and armor tremble. The membrane extending from the tips of my long fingers slices through the clouds. The span of my outstretched wings exceeds 40 meters on each side, longer than the length of my body. Considering my size and weight, I need wings this large to fly. Those cultists under attack by me wouldn't find this situation pleasing. Although my body is much smaller compared to the hundreds of meters long cruisers, cultists observing me through their cameras wouldn't think so. Bringing them down might be a bit much. Just a moment ago, I rammed the front section where their command center is located with my body. It was to disorient them. As I expected, the cruiser's crew couldn't make a sound decision. Instead of fleeing at full speed, they retaliated with their artillery. Amid the eerie noise of the blizzard and lightning, the sound of psychic turrets firing mixed in. I adjusted my wing arms and dove sharply. The enemy's attack barely grazed the tip of my tail. Be careful while flying. If we fall, it's over for us. I'm designed for atmospheric descent missions, so it shouldn't be an issue. Shut up. Flap, flap. This is fun. The kids were riding on my back as I flew at an incredible speed. Worried they might fall off, I gently wrapped them with my infiltration tentacles. As Mother of the Sky said, it wouldn't end well if they fell. Surprisingly, contrary to her name, Mother of the Sky didn't seem to enjoy high-speed flight. Since earlier, she's been clutching my tentacles like a roller coaster safety bar. Mother of the Sky, being a griffin, has the ability to glide temporarily in the air. I thought she'd be fine, but I was mistaken. Number 26 seems to enjoy it. As usual, Number 26, who likes everything I do, seemed to be having a lot of fun. On the other hand, the mostly mechanical PS-111 showed no emotion. Should I take out the engines first? It's unlikely, but if their captain activates the hyperdrive engine, it'll be troublesome. If they manage to warp into a star, that's one thing, but escaping from here wouldn't be good for me. They might bring reinforcements from the cult empire. Since this planet isn't designated as a sanctuary, the situation is different from last time. If I'm not careful, I might end up fighting the entire empire. I'll battle the empire when I become an adult, but now isn't the time. I need to prevent their escape. Let's start with the thrusters. I glided through the clouds, gently flapping my wing arms. The enemy cruiser's artillery continued to fire at me, and large purple energy shells pierced the clouds, closely trailing me. Even synchronized with a spaceship, I could easily evade such attacks. Entering the storm clouds, I effortlessly dodged the enemy's fire. They probably won't use their main cannon. Cult cruisers are equipped with powerful main cannons. In the past, Muriel's pirate fleet, possessing a cruiser from the Humanity Cartel, targeted me from a great distance. Despite controlling a cargo ship from the Star Union, one shot from the main cannon split the massive vessel in two. The destructive power is immense, but they likely won't use it now. Activating the main cannon concentrates enormous psychic power, essentially advertising their presence to the surrounding Galagons. Of course, they might just lose it and fire, but I need to finish this quickly before that happens. Hidden within the clouds, I quickly approached the side of the cruiser. The artillery guns, catching sight of me as I burst out of the clouds, hastily swiveled their barrels. A few quick-firing guns managed to hit me, but it didn't matter much. I had already closed the distance to the cruiser. Judging the distance to be close enough, I spread my wing arms wide and extended the membranes. My rapidly advancing body came to an abrupt halt in midair. Simultaneously, I channeled the recoil into my tail. Like a natural pendulum, my long tail swung forward. The pincer at its end struck the diamond-shaped cruiser's side like a mace. With a thunderous crash, flames erupted, and the cultist ship lurched violently to one side. The thruster on that side was destroyed, causing the cruiser to lose balance. Amidst the confusion, I landed on the cruiser. The artillery, hindered by the shaking of the entire ship, failed to hit me accurately. Before the ship could stabilize, I had work to do. I activated my acidic menotic gland feature for the first time. Acidic mucus mercilessly poured out from beneath my bifurcated jaws. The smooth ivory-colored exterior armor of the cruiser began to melt with a pungent odor. The fungi quickly penetrated the outer wall and infiltrated the interior sections. That should be enough. With my combat arm, I widened the hole and thrust my head inside. There, in the hallway, I saw a cultist staring at me in shock. Before he could react, I opened my jaws wide and bit down on him. Eek! A monster is breaching the ship. The cultist crew screamed, seeing their comrade disappear into my stomach, leaving only his ankles. This place is too cramped for me. My body had grown too large to navigate the corridors easily. Unless I reverted to a more compact form, moving, let alone fitting inside, was nearly impossible. Perhaps I should target the runway. After firing some fungi at the fleeing cultists, I pulled my head back outside. Zzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzz, I'm heading to the other side. Got it. Let's secure the command center and the engine room first. Zzz, yes. See you later, big baby. This is a chance to update the database on cult cruisers. Carefully, I placed the kids I had been holding with my infiltration tentacles inside the ship. Sensing their presence moving away, I spread my wings again. Report the damage. The captain shouted desperately. He had injured his head in the recent impact, but that was not important. External armor damage rate is 9%. 23% of the internal sections are damaged. The status of the crew is unconfirmed. An unidentified psychic creature is heading to the engine room. The defense squad has been wiped out. Damn it. What are the Templars doing? They're trying to stop the monster that appeared on the runway. Despite his words, the captain knew. He couldn't be unaware. The numerous video feeds floating in the center of the command room starkly displayed the dire situation. The 12 Templars were all on the runway. They were currently overwhelmed by a gargantuan flying creature much larger than any Galagon they had faced before. To say they were facing it would be inaccurate. It was more of a slaughter. The long, thick tentacles protruding from its back were as fast and deadly as energy shells. Even the Galagon scale armors worn by the members were of little significance if caught by those tentacles. Once engulfed, their bodies would dissolve completely. What good was armor against such defense? And that wasn't all. The creature, with its immense size, was undeniably tough. Damn it. The creature is reflecting psychic powers. What should we do then? Use the demolishers, oh arg. In a momentary distraction, another member fell. Boom, uncomfortably luminous, covered his head, his waist bent backwards. He had been one of those who had protected the cultists on this ship before departure. But the odds were not in their favor. The flying monster was excessively strong. The captain turned his head as he saw another member's limbs being torn off. They were their last hope, and even that was fading away. They had to come up with another plan. Should we abandon the ship? Using the escape pods might allow them to escape from these monsters. The problem was that escaping wouldn't necessarily improve their situation. Abandoning the ship in a place with terrifying monsters and harsh weather conditions made survival impossible. At best, it would prolong their lives for a few days. Prepare to activate the superluminal engines. Captain. That's insane. Despite objections from the crew in the situation room, the captain shook his head. It was their only remaining option. Since the ship was already significantly damaged, there was a high probability of it breaking apart during navigation. But in any case, whether they stayed or left, death was almost certain. Moreover, one of the monsters was heading towards the engine room, which meant this option might be unavailable in a few minutes. After flying to a nearby planet using superluminal navigation, we can escape. Though the identity of the attacking monsters was unknown, they were likely native creatures of this place. Whether they could survive in a completely different environment remained uncertain. I'll say it again. Prepare to activate the superluminal engines. As the captain was about to give the order again, the floor shook violently. No. It wasn't the ship shaking. Currently, the ship is maintaining balance in the air with the emergency thrusters. The flying creature that could destroy the ship was still fighting the Templars on the runway. It's not the ship shaking. His gaze fixed firmly on the closed bulkhead door. If the situation room was attacked, all the intermediate areas connected to it had been closed. No way. As if to answer his question, the situation room shook again. This time, it wasn't just him who felt the impact. The crew who had been diligently adjusting the ship's condition stopped moving. Like the captain, they stared at the bulkhead door. Confirm the status of nearby sectors. Understood. Then, a thunderous roar. A sound very close, akin to firing energy shells from a cannon, echoed nearby. It seemed to come right from behind that bulkhead door. And the captain's prediction was correct. The bulkhead door shook violently from a strong impact. After a few more tremors, it soon fell silent. Although the attack had ceased, none of the cultists present here thought the enemy had retreated just like that. Some crew members, following the captain's gesture, retrieved weapons stored in the bridge. As they armed themselves, another change occurred at the bulkhead door. A sudden red dot appeared on the surface of the door. The red dot rapidly enlarged, soon becoming a sizable hole as energy concentrated intensely and disintegrated the material forming the door. Everyone in the situation room peered through the hole. Dim cries of crew members echoed faintly through the hole. And amidst the deep darkness, it revealed itself. Eyes as red as blood, a face so pale it seemed unmatched. If her eyes had been closed, one might have called her face beautiful, like that of a woman, glaring into the situation room. A woman. Someone uttered in disbelief. But soon, they had to retract their statement. The white face floating in the darkness wasn't anything like a woman. Of course not. Whether human or cultist, no woman's mouth opens that wide. A mouth as wide as a cultist's face. At the moment when a purplish-blue flame erupted from within, the captain tried to give an order. Open fire on that monster immediately. But he couldn't. Suddenly, the world twisted, and the smooth ivory-colored floor rushed up abruptly. Along with it came a familiar sight he saw every morning in the mirror. His finely adorned upper body. It was then that the captain realized his neck had been severed from his body. Gradually, countless arms tore through the hole, and the silent screams of the crew members became his final memory. Chapter 203. The society and institutions of the cult empire are quite different from those of Megacorp or Star Union. They have developed civilization in entirely different environments, so it's natural that they would be so different. For example, the concept of a knowledge manager aboard a cult empire fleet is non-existent in Megacorp or Star Union. To put it metaphorically, they can be seen as a hybrid of information storage systems from other factions and ship engineers combined. During voyages, knowledge managers utilize their extensive knowledge to assist captains and handle ship repairs when necessary. Due to the importance of their duties, knowledge managers are respected as much as military commanders on any ship. However, even their esteemed position did not prove particularly helpful in the current situation. The intruder who killed the captain began massacring the crew in the situation room. That monster was an entity unknown even to the knowledge manager. It had 8 large and small arms with blades at their ends, a pale feminine face, and a grotesque tail, a biomechanical organism reminiscent of something out of a nightmare. Despite the knowledge manager's efforts to understand competing factions against the Empire, identifying this creature proved to be a challenge. If one were to liken it to any known entity based on its physical characteristics, it would likely be the cursed bio-weapon of the Star Union, known as a Screamer. However, unlike the Screamer, which supposedly cannot wield a variety of weapons like this abominable hybrid, it fired lethal energy blasts from its tail and mouth. The knowledge manager knew well what kind of energy, glowing with a cold navy blue hue, emanated from the creature. It was the weapon predominantly used by the Temple Guardians, the Demolisher. Take cover. Oh. The creature's tail swung around. Energy blasts, disintegrating matter according to the tail's movements, rained down upon the cultists' heads. Some managed to dodge, but others were not so fortunate. My arm. My legs. Ugh. A crew member whose arm vanished entirely due to the disintegration effect, and a cult whose lower body remained after being struck. Their bloodless appearance was truly eerie. Aim for that tail. It's no use. It shoots from its mouth too. Damn it. As if to confirm their words, the villain who severed the captain's neck was the energy blast that came flying from its head. Even if its only means of attack were its tail, the odds of the situation improving were slim. Its movements were too swift, targeting them was nearly impossible for non-combatants. Knowledge manager. Since the captain has fallen, you're in command. Do something. Before examining further, most of the crew had been wiped out. Hiding and observing the enemy, the knowledge manager finally issued an order. Restraints, anything. Pour out any technology that can limit its movements. In a short time, it appeared that the creature had a reduced resistance to psychic powers. The basis for this was its evident attempt to evade psychic rifles fired by cultists. The psychic rifle stationed on the bridge was not particularly potent. It was merely an item prepared for non-combatants to defend themselves in dire situations. However, the creature had been primarily evading combat with psychic focus. It should have realized the potency of firepower much sooner. Therefore, it could be inferred that the enemy had a weak resistance to psychic abilities. Upon the knowledge manager's exclamation, the cultists with goat-like horns began gathering psychic power. They drew on any knowledge they had learned to hold the enemy in any way possible. The flow of intense energy that filled the situation room entangled the creature. As a result, its frenzied movements dulled. KRRK. Sensing something wrong with its body, the creature smirked. Its movements slowed and eventually ceased. The creature's bright red eyes rolled like blood. It appeared to be investigating the anomaly that had occurred within its own body. Gradually, its 8 arms began to tremble. It's an immense power. We must finish it quickly. The creature emitted cracking sounds from its body, while the cultists attempting to restrain it groaned loudly. The situation room became noisy with the sound of the creature's victims. They had to finish it off as quickly as possible. Except for the cultists using technology, the rest aimed their rifles at the creature's head. Just as their muzzles were about to spit fire, the knowledge manager doubted their eyes. Something was standing where there had been nothing just now. Similar to the cultists, it had horns on its head. Its height was similar, and it stood on 2 legs. However, the knowledge manager felt no familiarity upon seeing it. Instinctively, they could tell. That entity was as dangerous as the biomechanical creature they had captured. The eyes of the entity standing at the door moved. Its vivid pumpkin-colored pupils faced the knowledge manager. Upon meeting its gaze, the knowledge manager felt the pupils shine blue. They hurriedly tried to call their comrades. However, before they could do so, there was a voice calling out to them. I'm hungry. The whisper-like voice in their ear made them startle. They turned their head, but there was no one behind them. Was that just? I'm starving to death. What had been a whispering sensation until now thundered into their brain. The knowledge manager covered their ears with both hands. I'm hungry. Please. I'm starving. Give me meat. I want to tear something apart. There's plenty of food around here. Hurry. Tear it apart. Give me organs. Drink blood. Eat bones. Despite plugging their ears, the curse filled with revenge pierced them. Kill those beside you. Fill your stomach with their flesh. They struggled to withstand it somehow, but the voices quickly overwhelmed them. Their superior knowledge and reason faded surprisingly fast. In its place grew an overwhelming madness. Knowledge manager. What should we? That. When their colleagues realized something was wrong, it was already too late. The knowledge manager was no longer there. Only victims enslaved by the icy grip of the demon remained. Ouch. Ah. As the knowledge manager turned into a slave of the demon, another monster outside the situation room entered. With golden fur and black stripes, horns on its head, the creature attacked those restraining the biomechanical organism. Every time its sharp claws flashed, cultists poured blood and fell. As their comrades fell one by one, the restraints on the biomechanical organism did not last long. Two monsters brutally tore apart the cultists and a knowledge manager who had suddenly gone mad. When exactly 9 cultists remained, the slaughter ceased. The bipedal monster approached a cult's computer and began tampering with it. Meanwhile, the creature with 8 arms absorbed the fallen cultists. This was no metaphor. The creature absorbed the life force from the bodies with its hooked claws. Every time its hands touched a body, it quickly withered away and soon dried up like a mummy. The problem was that among the cultists lying on the floor, some were still alive. Those who had been subdued with severe injuries also became sacrifices to the creature. Stop it. Don't do that. The creature's hand reached a cult whose legs had been severed. In agony, he screamed as he was sucked into the creature while still alive. One could tell how severe his suffering was even without hearing his screams. When all was said and done, its body had shrunk to a third of its original size. The creature withdrew its hand from the cult's body, which was now reduced to a skeleton, and licked its claws. The moment the dude aimed for fresh prey, the situation room floor shook. At that moment, both the dude touching the computer and the dudes devouring the cultists all stopped moving. The vibrations rattling the situation room grew closer. Each time those dudes broke down the door, the vibrations were much larger. The remaining 9 cults quickly realized who was causing the vibrations. A creeping presence to end the nightmare-like time. It was a bigger nightmare. ZZZZZZZZZZZ, you've worked hard. What hard work? It's not like I've done this only once or twice. ZZZ, well. The situation room was a literal slaughterhouse. The smell of delicious blood wafted from scattered chunks of flesh and blood flowing on the floor. They were all traces of the cultists' spilled blood. In the corners of the situation room, 9 cultists trembled without their weapons. I thought I might need to hide my belly. ZZZZZZZZZZZ, thank you. Well done. This spaceship will come in handy when we leave the planet. Since there's no immediate need to decompose, I'm going to hide it somewhere. But I'll need crew members to manage it. I activated the morphological organ after a long time. One of the 5 genetic information stored in my body spread throughout. Located between my mouth and throat, the vocal organ was reconstructed based on the received genetic information, and the tiny holes in the synthetic scales, outer covering, and shell were ready to emit new pheromones. I slowly opened my mouth. Come here. When the voice of the same race came out of my mouth, all 9 were greatly surprised. Their faces, which had been watching me, gradually turned pale. Due to the pheromones of the morphological organ, they will see me as a cult. However, they will feel severe discomfort due to my size. They would never want to approach me, as I, who was a monster, had suddenly turned into a tribe that exuded an ominous feeling. But they have no freedom. There's nowhere for cult survivors to escape on the cruiser above the clouds. Like prisoners being dragged to the gallows, they came to me. As I lay outside the situation room in the corridor, I implanted parasites in them. The first victim to become rancid and eat away at the tentacles was followed by others who listened well. Land this ship. Yes. I instructed them to land near the location of my nest. Cults with faces ashen as one began the cruiser's coordination. I've gotten a lot bigger since I became a junior. There was no significant change in length, but the carapace, which thickened due to the characteristics of the bone beast, and the wings, which were folded but still took up a lot of volume. It was almost full even though I lay in the corridor instead of entering the situation room. I'm going to have to wreck the computer if I try to control it. So I called PS-111 while lying down. ZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZZ and okay, it is confirmed that the MC can talk with PS-111 through telepathy, Actually, sometimes the author made them talk normally and sometimes through telepathy. So it got a little confusing. From now on, the MC will talk to PS-111 through telepathy only, unless it is mentioned that he used the mimic organ. Thank you. More importantly, I need other tools that a morph is carrying. This. PS-111 looked at the loot held by the small arms on my chest. After hunting the members of the temple guard, he took their equipment. Galagon's claw sword, a type of reinforced suit made from Galagon scales, as well as miscellaneous armaments, are in my hands. After fighting with Muriel before, the important equipment was separately packed in a backpack or something. Blood Raver, or High Priest's golden spear, etc. I am currently benefiting greatly from the divine specter I gained by preying on the brain. I was thinking about bringing the equipment to the nest, but PS-111 seemed interested. ZZZZZZZZZZZZ, do you want something? I need a silver tool containing psychic power and genetic information of a specific creature. It shows Galagon's claw sword. It picked up the weapon with his fingers and swallowed it whole. Soon, the arms with sickle-shaped claws began to change shape. The black sickle was colored silver rapidly, and the thickness was thicker than before. The newly transformed figure looks very similar to the white Galagon's claw. It shook its arm once, with a new sickle blade in its part. A transparent blade made of psychic power pierced the wall of the situation room. I can now operate psychic power. It was satisfied with the traces of psychic power it had created. I said it was a new model. Contrary to what it was saying lightly, the abilities it showed were by no means something to be taken lightly. Its identity is a Mutant Screamer's intermediate terminal model. It's like a prototype for combat weapons. That is, it could be mass-produced. I had heard that players were participating in the development of Mutant Screamers. Perhaps I could fight hundreds or thousands of Screamers at the level of PS-111 when I fought with them. It's unlikely. There was no Screamer I've seen so far that had the same or similar power level as PS-111. If other creatures had similar levels to PS-111, players would have conquered space and state. Bind its superior model. When we found PS-111, his condition was not good. Thanks to it, we were able to reboot it as a friend of the number 26, but much of the information stored in his memory was damaged. For example, the operation when I first entered this planet, the strategic goal, or so on. It didn't remember. The top model commanding the intermediate terminal model knows it. It called it Pira 11. Commander-in-Chief of the Mutant Screamer. I don't know whether he is a Screamer or an android. While watching PS-111 and thinking about future plans, I approached the mother in the sky. I just looked up the computer and found some unusual information. ZZZZZZZZZ, what information? I guess a creature presumed to be a green Galagon came here and returned. ZZZZZZZZZZZZ, returned. Did he come out to scout? I don't think so. It seemed like it retreated when it approached the close distance. It must have been trying to hunt. Rarely does a green Galagon with an aggressive personality back off when it sees its prey. Only when on a reconnaissance or when it meets a formidable opponent that he can't handle. Because of me. With a black carapace with a large build and tentacles, it could be misunderstood if the opponent is an inexperienced Galagon. In the fine appearance, there is no difference, but seeing the cloud hiding, it will be no different from a black Galagon. I'm glad I didn't fight. Around here, the White Galagon faction with Adha is still running the Odd Grads flock that has been there since the beginning. It's unclear which force the opponent belongs to. If any force gets to know me, it'll be very guarded. And Galagon doesn't like having a strong opponent installed in front of him. We'll have to get ready for a battle with Galagon faster. Chapter 204. The cult battleship landed in a forest far from where I had set up my nest. The area around the nest was not suitable for landing due to the terrain. After landing, I sent 8 survivors outside the situation room to clean up the scattered bodies. Inside the situation room, I inserted the blood-sucking tentacles and sucked in the bodies one by one. That's when I noticed something strange. No knowledge manager. The knowledge manager is the core officer and chief technician of the cult battleship. As a species using psychic powers called psychic power, the cult can transmit records and information stored in computers to individuals. Therefore, the cult does not have a central information processing agency like Megacorp's Data Archive or Starunion's Starlink database. The Prophet Assembly, one of the Empire's 3 major power institutions, plays a role similar to this. Normally, a knowledge manager must be on board a battleship. While it's common for patrol ships not to carry them, they do board medium and large warships above destroyers. However, among the corpses laid out in the situation room, there was no knowledge manager. ZZZZZZZZZZZZ, where's the knowledge manager? I subdued it as an ice spirit earlier. It should be inside the situation room. The Mother of the Sky answered my question with a wave of my attack. Currently, she was in another part of the battleship looking for equipment worth taking as loot. Despite hearing her response, I searched through the corpses again, but still couldn't find it. Physically, the knowledge manager looks just like an ordinary cult member, but with a special badge attached to their clothes. It's shaped like the eye of a cult, often referred to as Illuminati in the community. Could they be mixed up among the bodies? I can't find them. As I rummaged through each corpse, PS-111, who was circling the computer, asked me, "What are you looking for?" ZZZZZZZZZZZZZ, a corpse with an eye-shaped badge. I ate that corpse before a morph came. ZZZZZZZZZZZ, you ate it. When? Middle baby was working on the computer. I didn't realize it was an important target. I apologize. PS-111 bowed and apologized. Why is it acting like this when it usually doesn't? Although it always spoke of energy supply, it had never touched my prey before. While it was a special individual, it was still controlled by machines. I thought the chance of making a mistake was low. Moreover, as always, the voice was a monotonous female voice mixed with mechanical sounds, but it felt subtly different. I watched it. There was no change in the face of PS-111, a creature composed half of machines. However, both its voice and expression felt different. If I had to express the feeling that permeated the white face. Emotions. It had shown a sulky appearance to number 26 before. At that time, it felt artificially expressed by the machine in a specific situation. But now it seemed much more human. A human-like machine. It was a new Screamer model and a commander-level creature, so it had relatively high autonomy. Therefore, it was uncertain whether this change was due to its design or whether it was evolving into a new existence. This aspect is similar to number 26. When I first met it, I had similar thoughts. At that time, I decided to keep an eye on him, which ultimately proved to be very helpful to me. Let's watch a little more. If it thinks it can deceive me, there are many better ways than awkwardly trying to deceive me like this. It must not intend to harm me. After a moment of hesitation, I decided to overlook PS-111's mistake. ZZZZZZZZZZ, be more careful next time. Thank you. With that, I finished and sucked up the bodies again with the blood-sucking tentacles. After cleaning up all the bodies shortly afterwards, I went outside the battleship with PS-111. The big baby and the friend came out. Why did it take so long? ZZZZZZZZZZZ, I had something to do for a moment. When I came out, the Mother of the Sky and number 26 were waiting for us. The Mother of the Sky had a leash attached to the Demolisher and wore a champion shield on her left wrist. She resembled a temple guardian but did not wear a Galagon scale suit. Wolves cannot wear normal armor apart from special materials due to their transformation abilities. This is why when transformed, the body doubles in size and the shape changes, so ordinary clothes would quickly be damaged. Next to her, number 26 carried a backpack filled with loot. ZZZZZZZZZZZ, then let's return to the nest. Are we flying? ZZZ, yes. Ah. Number 26 always loved flying. When I laid down and lowered my body, it bounced up and climbed onto my back. Despite her name, the Mother of the Sky, who didn't enjoy flying as much, sighed and followed behind number 26. Carrying PS-111, I flew up into the sky. Let's rest at the nest for a moment and then go catch some new prey. Now that my presence was known, the fight with Galagon would soon be at hand. Regardless of which herd, they'll try to exclude me. The Black Galagon herd, who expelled Adha, won't be fond of new competitors. While Ham Ort had promised not to confront me directly, that doesn't mean I can relax. They might be more wary, thinking I'm aiming for Adha. I originally planned to prepare more, but there's nothing I can do. Galagon is as challenging an opponent as a player. I plan to gather more than 10 traits of the apex and then fight it. Let's start with Shark Bear. And then I will fight the Sky Whales. Creatures that have never come down to the ground after being born. A magnificent presence known as the Whale of the Universe. That's the Sky Whale. Owner of the Red Forest. He died. In response to the unbelievable news, the Queen of Purity Hamort asked, and the White Galagon who reported the news nodded its head. Until recently, the king was alive and well. Why would the king suddenly die? She didn't understand this situation. Odgrad. Did he kill him? Nelgerma. Do not know. King. Already. Dead. Just in case, she asked, but she knew it wasn't Odgrad who did it. Body. Bring it. The white female Galagon Nelgerma extended the fragment of wings left by the owner of the Red Forest. Seeing that, she barely resisted a sigh. These small fragments are of little significance. In other words, she needs to find another Red King somewhere on this planet. Amort. Orders. New owner of the Red Forest. Search. Nelgerma. Opposed. Bellow. Weary. Need. Rest. It was rare for a young Galagon to raise objections to the leader. Moreover, Nelgerma was one of the most obedient Galagons in Hamort's herd. Such a scenario means the situation is not going well. Hamort did not raise objections any further because she disliked Odgrad's propensity to sacrifice their own kin. If she were to issue orders forcibly here, she would merely become another Odgrad, forcing her subordinates to work for her. Hamort. Correct. Nelgerma. Can. Rest. Thank you. Having dismissed Nelgerma, Hamort swiftly pondered over her next move. Time was not on her side. Though she currently left the cruel whims of the Black Galagon untouched, no one knew how long that would last. If Odgrad were to emerge now, many of her kin would perish, even if she were to sacrifice herself. Therefore, as quickly as possible, before that happens, she must transform Hamort's daughter into their savior. Hamort entered the nest, carrying fragments of wings. In the expansive cave lay a single small kin. Impressive with grass-green scales, smaller than juvenile ones, and a plump tail. She was none other than Hamort's daughter, Adha. Unlike their first meeting, Adha now had small white spots on her wings as she lifted her head. Red Forest owner. Died. That's correct. Adha spoke as if she already knew everything. Recently, she had been practicing her psychic powers in detail. Now, her sensing extended beyond the cave into the forest beyond. From a mother's perspective, there was no greater joy than seeing her daughter grow, but Hamort couldn't wholly embrace it. Because Adha was constantly plotting to escape whenever an opportunity arose. Adult. Hunt. Definitely. Hamort. Denies. Red Forest owner. Not weak. Ugly kin. Hunt. Impossible. Adult. Appearance. Change. Real. Appearance. Much. Cool. Strength. Powerful. Since she had brought the corpse of the Snake King with difficulty last time, it had always been that cry. Hamort knew exactly who Adha meant by adult. At the time they met Adha, the ugly kin was also present. Adha remembered the adult as a grotesque being so bizarrely shaped that it was unclear if it truly belonged to their kin. It communicated not in the usual way their kin did, making it seem like another species altogether. Of course, the majestic horns on its head were not unattractive, but that was all. It was small in stature and did not appear particularly strong. That such a feeble being was accompanying Hamort's daughter was a miracle in itself. Ken. Appearance. Unchangeable. Hamort's daughter. Mistake. No. Hamort. Wrong. Don't know. At all. Don't know. Seeing Adha speak so bitterly, Hamort felt an urge to strike her but restrained herself forcibly. She threw the wing fragments in front of Adha. Grabbing the wing fragment with her forepaw and starting to chew it with her tentacles, Adha was informed by Hamort. Eat it. After eating. We will go. Where to go? Eating the owner of the Red Forest right now was impossible. Therefore, she needed to advance and deal with what was to come. King of the Sky. Hunt. King of the Sky. Hamort. Hamort's daughter. Go together. If she were to devour the King of the Sky, her daughter would ascend to a level akin to hers in an instant. So Hamort decided to take the gamble. If her daughter truly was their savior, she would achieve her goal. Inside the geothermally heated cave, bubbling with activity, the floor was strewn with all sorts of precious minerals and gemstones, while the walls and ceiling were adorned with fruits emitting a fragrant aroma. Amidst one of the most extravagant caves seldom seen in nature lay the black-colored owner. Although his long body curled into a circle as he slept, he still emitted a considerable sense of awe. 6 curved horns sprouted from his head, and his wings were as massive as rain clouds pouring down. His body and legs were tightly packed with sturdy muscles, and his talons were sharp as lightning bolts in a storm. He was none other than the Black King, the great Odgrad. As usual, he supported himself with the geothermal heat while deep in slumber. However, today was slightly different. Despite clearly being asleep, his tail twitched uncomfortably. Moments later, he raised his head sharply. As his massive body moved, the entire cave shook violently. What was that just now? Odgrad's eyes, initially filled with uncertainty, gradually regained their composure. He had just had a nightmare. In his dream, he saw it. His kin rushed at him, attempting to slit his throat. He vividly recalled even the sight of his head falling off mid-flight. Yet the entity that cut his throat remained blurred. Whether it was large or small, nothing was clear. The only certainty was that the creature's body was black. The future. Odgrad possessed a very special ability. He could foresee the future. Whether through prophetic dreams or visions, he could glimpse what was to come. After realizing his precognitive ability, he always maneuvered to avoid ominous futures. Without that, it would have been impossible for him to survive this long. At present, there was only one entity capable of shedding its black scales. The white female who stood against him. Odgrad had been implementing measures to ensure his kin did not grow. For some unknown reason, this detestable female had found a loophole in his unknown condition. The future shown in his visions had yet to materialize. Reflecting on past precedents, it would still be some time before dreams become reality. Therefore, the white female was likely still mid-transformation. Odgrad summoned his companion from outside. When the white companion entered, he issued his command. Odgrad. Commands. Can. Prepare. Eliminate. Traitors. The waiting was over. It was time to execute the traitors he had long ignored.